Back to the live show. Welcome back to the live show. It is your boy Genesis, and you know what time it is. I am back here. It is currently 3:23 p.m. and today's date is the 10th of December 2024. How are you doing this beautiful afternoon? How is your day going? Let me know in the chat. Okay, let me know, guys. All right, with that being said, I just want to say, may God bless you. May you have a wonderful rest of your day. And I am rooting for you regardless of what you're going through. Life is hard. We get it, okay? Life is hard. But guess what? Guess what? You have survived every single step of the way. So, God is your strength. You are strong. You are resilient. You are brave. Okay? You are absolutely brave. So, let's go. Let's go. Let's get it. All right. The title for today's stream is Tuesday Vibes in the United States. Tuesday Vibes in the United States. Tuesday Vibes in the US of A. What it do, everybody? All right, we are back, guys. We are back. And it's like we never left. It's like we never left. Happy Tuesday. All right, is this Taco Tuesday? Oh, wait. Because some people say Tuesday. Every Tuesday is Taco Tuesday. I don't know about all that, but if you think it's Taco Tuesday every Tuesday, then, go have some fun. Grab some bites, okay? Grab some taco bites and have a good Tuesday evening and wash it down with some, I guess what? Orange juice, or some of y'all use sweet tea, or some of y'all use soda. But I don't really recommend soda though, but you can use water, you can use whatever you want to wash it down with, okay? Whatever you wish. It is your choice. But with that being said, I just want to say I love y'all. And we are back. Tuesday Vibes in the USA. Let's go.
Breaking news, we have new video of Luigi Mangione's arrival at a courthouse in Pennsylvania. That's where we are anticipating an extradition hearing for the 26-year-old Ivy League graduate and high school valedictorian accused in the murder of health insurance CEO Brian Thompson.
Yeah, let's see this moment. It is actually sort of something to watch. He was trying to send a message, but police rush him off very quickly.
And it's completely out of touch. And it's an insult to the intelligence of the American people. It's a lived experience.
All right, so we just heard him yell that about it, sort of something being unjust. This is an insult to the intelligence of the American people. Let's bring in trial attorney Mercedes Colwin with us. Look, this is someone between what you're hearing him say right there, manifesto, messages left on these bullets. Right. I mean, this is someone on a mission, it appears. He is the alleged killer in this case. We have to be very clear about that. He's facing an extradition hearing here, but I just wonder what you think of a moment like that as you see it, knowing the evidence that police say they have on this person.
Brianna, it's very disturbing, and those types of outbursts will certainly be evaluated by his defense team because that's just not normal. I mean, we've already had reports that he has been very strange since over the summer, that he has become reclusive. This manifesto is these rantings and ravings of an individual that obviously has some aberrant thoughts in his mind, and that's why he put it down on paper. So all of that is certainly very disturbing. The defense is going to have to evaluate whether this is an individual that really will even understand the charges. I mean, they may, depending on how aberrant his thoughts are, he has to be able to understand the process and the proceedings, even at this stage. And if there's some indication that he isn't able to do so, there might have to be some psychological evaluation, and then that will be reported back to the judge, and the judge will make the ultimate ruling as to whether or not to proceed with the proceeding. But this type of outburst is definitely very disturbing.
Yeah, no doubt about that. You saw officers shuffling him in as quickly as possible. I'm wondering, Mercedes, as you're talking about the suspect here having a grasp of what the proceedings are going to be like, what actually happens at an extradition hearing?
There has to be an establishment by the demanding state. Demanding state is New York. The asylum state is Pennsylvania. So the demanding state, that New York has to establish to law enforcement that this is the individual that was the alleged shooter of Brian Thompson. So they'll have to go through the evidence that we've already described, the manifesto, the ghost gun, the images that we saw, even the eyewitness. They may even bring in some of the eyewitness who was discovered. The arresting officer in Pennsylvania will come forward and talk about the exchange that he had with Mangione. It's already been reported that arresting officer, when asked Mangione, the first words out of his mouth, it's been reported, he asked Mangione, were you in New York? And certainly Mangione, at least this officer, claims that he was very nervous when asked that question. So there will be testimony, there will be evidence, but Mangione can waive it. I mean, depending on whether he waives it, it doesn't sound, to Brianna's point, doesn't sound like he may waive the hearing. And if he does waive the hearing, then he will be extradited without any further process. It doesn't sound like that's going to happen. It will have to be. It certainly sounds like there will be this process with witnesses and evidence being set forth before the judge. And the judge will make the ultimate ruling that there is probable cause to establish that Mangione is, in fact, the alleged killer of Brian Thompson.
And we are anticipating news out of that hearing soon. Mercedes Colwyn, thank you so much for giving us your analysis. CNN's Bryn Gingras has been covering every twist and turn on this case. Bryn, what is happening at this extradition hearing?
Yeah, so listen, Boris, we have a reporter inside the courtroom right now. They're not allowed to have any sort of communication. So we don't quite know just yet if that hearing has started. We're still waiting to get an update. But you can see, we know that he is inside that courthouse, at least from that sort of combative moment there, as you showed the viewers, where it took several sheriff's deputies to calm him down and get him inside of that building. As you said, this is really the first time that we are hearing from him, his own voice. We do know that he does have a defense attorney who's representing him for this extradition hearing. We know that New York asked for this extradition. A warrant for his arrest has been issued. So it's now up to the trial judge to go forward with this, for the judge rather, to go forward with this hearing. And he has the decision to either fight it or to actually move forward, where people from the NYPD and Marshal's office will bring him here to New York. And we're learning that that could happen sometime tonight, could be even sometime tomorrow.
And Bryn, what are we learning about a potential motive?
Yeah, so Boris, there's an intelligence report that is shared among the intelligence community all across the country that came from the NYPD, received by our John Miller, and it really gives some more details about that 3-page document that authorities did find on Mangione, they say, when they made that arrest. And it talks about sort of his hatred with the healthcare industry, and it talks about how he somewhat viewed himself as, committing a symbolic takedown with this alleged act that he is accused of. In it, he basically said the mafioso has gotten too powerful and to continue the abuse of our country for immense profit. And he kind of paints himself, according to this report, as somewhat of a hero, saying that evidently I am the first to face it with such brutal honesty. Now, of course, you've heard Governor Shapiro from Pennsylvania come out. You've seen the New York governor come out and say he is no hero. Of course, we should not be celebrating this person, but it certainly is giving a little bit more detail as to a motive possibly of why he is accused of this horrific crime. We also are learning more from friends and family, right? We have been talking to many people, some who have lived with him, some people who knew him in college and high school, who say, they were, close to him over social media or keeping in touch with him, but he sort of fell off the grid this last summer. And one person we spoke to talked about a back injury that he was dealing with, which also might be something that could be connecting the dots to the healthcare industry. But let's hear more from this person who actually lived with him in Hawaii at one point.
Before he moved in, I remember he said he had a back issue and he was hoping to get stronger in Hawaii. When he first came, he went on a surf lesson with other members, and unfortunately, just a basic surf lesson, he was in bed for about a week. We had to get a different bed for him that was more firm, and I know it was really traumatic and difficult. You know, when you're in your early 20s and you can't, do some basic things, it can be really, really difficult.
Yeah, again, these are all sort of the things that police are going to be using to connect the dots and try to point to a motive, try to build their case. We know that they've also, of course, scrubbed social media in their efforts in this investigation. As I said, we are now waiting for this extradition hearing to happen, and it's possible that Luigi Mangione may be on his way to New York at the soonest, maybe tonight, Boris.
Bryn Gingras, thank you so much for keeping an eye on that. Brianna?
Experts say the suspected killer of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson planned his attack well, but also made some crucial mistakes. So let's take a look at what police say are his key moves and also the evidence left behind and what this all says about the gunman's strategy. Before the killing, the suspect cleverly avoided air travel because, of course, had he taken a plane, he would have had to show his ID, reveal his entire face under security cameras. If he had a gun at the time, it probably would have been detected during luggage screening. Instead, the suspect took a Greyhound bus to New York, a bus that originated in Atlanta, though we still have to wait and see where he may have gotten on that bus. The suspect stayed in a hostel in New York using a fake New Jersey driver's license and paying cash, again, avoiding a digital trail there. The suspect was careful up until this point, including diligently wearing a mask over his face. This was that rare image of the suspect's unmasked face captured on surveillance video when a hostel employee flirted with him and asked him to lower his face mask. And it was these images, of course, that helped spread his identity across the country and even around the world. Then lastly, the suspect used a ghost gun, which is an untraceable self-assembled firearm. Kept law enforcement veterans puzzled here. Police saying when Mangione was arrested at that Pennsylvania McDonald's, local officers discovered this ghost gun when they were searching him. And then after the killing, the suspect seemingly left a trail of evidence behind: a discarded Starbucks water bottle, an energy bar wrapper, a burner phone that gave authorities DNA material, and a partial fingerprint to work with. Later, that distinctive backpack resembling the one worn by the gunman was found in Central Park. Authorities hoping DNA samples from all of these items would help identify the suspect. Testing, though, yielded no DNA or fingerprint matches in law enforcement databases. So we're going to see, though, how those pieces of evidence are going to be used by authorities now that the suspect has been arrested. And the suspect's complex path out of New York showing investigators just how much planning went into it here. Remember, immediately after the shooting, police say the suspect ran from the scene, hopped on an e-bike, rode to Central Park, ditched the bike, and hailed a taxi, then went to a bus terminal with interstate buses headed to a variety of destinations. And it was in that taxi cab where a security camera captured clear images of the suspect's eyes. One of the most baffling last aspects to this arrest is the fact that investigators discovered Mangione in possession of numerous fake IDs, including this one here, one that police believe was actually used by the suspect in New York City at that hostel. The question is, why shed so much other evidence, but keep some pieces of potential evidence, including the fake IDs?
Thank you for tuning into the live show. You know what time it is. Man, Luigi is going through it right now, man. I hope he's mentally stable. Maybe he's not. I mean, if you come in to do something like that, maybe you're not mentally stable. But they're going to have to figure it out if he is mentally stable. However, Fox News was talking to some of the people they found around the McDonald's, or people that encountered him in the McDonald's in Pennsylvania where he was apprehended. So let's listen to that.
We've been following the case since early yesterday morning, 9:15. He was taken into custody at the McDonald's. As of course, we're learning that a customer spotted that familiar.
I mean, a group of us are here every day, and one of my friends, and I thought he was kidding. When the shooter, I'm assuming was the shooter who they made the arrest on, came in, he made a comment, God, that looks like the shooter from New York. But I thought he was, the group of us, I thought it was more of a joke. And we were kidding about it. But then, as it turned out, it was him. And like I said, the employee that thought it was him that I guess started the initial investigation on it. I talked to her later. I said, was I here when he came in? And she goes, yeah. And she goes, actually, you and your friends and all were making a joke, almost like saying, you know, and that's pretty much about it. I mean, he ordered, went to the rear of the store and sat.
All right, you're just hearing there from a customer at the McDonald's yesterday morning in Altoona, Pennsylvania, where the ultimate...
So basically, this guy was a regular guy, regular kid in the community in Maryland, was smart, very educated, bright kid doing his thing. Apparently, he had a back injury. Maybe, just maybe that's where the discrepancies from United Healthcare came into play. Who knows? I don't know. Okay, they're still investigating everything. However, Luigi Mangione, has been charged with second-degree murder. Yes, Luigi Mangione has been charged with second-degree murder. And yes, that's where he's at right now. He's being charged with second-degree murder in fatal shooting of United Healthcare CEO. I guess, I mean, his future, how smart he is, how intelligent he is, whatever great destiny he had, I don't know how that's going to come into fruition right now, because if this all pans out to be exactly what it's looking like, he's probably going to spend his whole existence in jail or in a psychiatric facility, one of the two.
Conclusion to this tragic story as he was taken into custody a short time later, as we're learning more information that Mangione had a gun on him, as well as writings expressing anger at corporate America. And almost a week ago, last Wednesday morning, the United Healthcare CEO was gunned down on a New York City sidewalk outside of this Hilton Midtown Manhattan hotel. Investigators analyzed DNA samples, fingerprints, and internet addresses. When arrest came 5 days later, the investigative efforts shared credit with the civilian's instincts, as a customer at McDonald's in a restaurant in Pennsylvania noticed another patron who resembled the man in a security camera photo that New York police had publicized. Luigi Nicholas Mangione, a 26-year-old Ivy League grad from a prominent Maryland real estate family, was arrested on Monday in the killing of Brian Thompson, who is headed, of course, one of the largest United States medical insurance companies. Mangione remained jailed in Pennsylvania, where he was initially charged with the possession of an unlicensed firearm, forgery, and also providing false identification to police. Late evening yesterday, prosecutors in Manhattan had added charges of murder to that case. And of course, we're learning more about those filings here on Live Now from Fox as we continue to detail it in.
Man, we haven't heard anything from his family. They did put out a statement saying that they really don't have anything to say now concerning the news, and they're wishing the United Healthcare CEO and his family good wishes, and also their son, but nothing really official, like maybe they knew anything about it or not. Nothing like that has been put out. However, this guy may be psychological situation. It might be psychological right here. He might not I don't know if he's gonna look. I don't know if he's gonna go to actual jail. I don't know how that process works. However, if it's being diagnosed with psychiatrist impairment or some sort of brain situation, he might not be going to jail. I don't know. Okay, we're still gonna look it up, but this may be that case where it's like his brain is fried and I don't know why he did it. Anyway, Josh Shapiro has something to say.
To our local police. And our local police here in Altoona acted swiftly. I want to say a special thanks to Officer Tyler Fry of the Altoona Police Department. Officer Fry is about 6 months into his time serving his fellow people here in Pennsylvania, and he acted swiftly, he acted with smarts, and he acted with calm. You know, safety fellow people here in Pennsylvania, and he acted swiftly, he acted with smarts, and he acted with calm. You know, safety often turns on the strength of the relationship between the community and law enforcement. We have that strong relationship here in Altoona, and it was proven here today. I want to ask all of our fellow Pennsylvanians to demonstrate the same type of thoughtfulness and courage and smarts as the individual at McDonald's did this morning, and help law enforcement here in Pennsylvania as we continue with our investigation. You'll see photos of the suspect who is here, and you should know that this suspect traveled between Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, making stops in between, obviously here in Altoona. I want to ask all of our fellow Pennsylvanians to help us with any tips that they might have by contacting us at 800-4PA-TIPS. Again, that number is 800-4PA-TIPS. The suspect was just arraigned here in the courthouse, and presumably New York will file charges very, very soon. That process will continue to play out, and justice will be delivered in this case. This case is...
And it's wild. Some people are calling this guy a hero. What do you guys think in the chat? Put it in the chat. Do you think this guy is a hero, or he's just mentally fried at this point? Or because this seems like a premeditated arrangement. He knew where the CEO was going to be at. He knew the time. People around there say he was outside waiting in the cold before he committed the crime. So it's like he knew what he was doing. But if the issue now is he may be going through some mental episode, it's like, how are you going through a mental episode and then you knew exactly where the CEO was going to be, what time it was going to be out there, you waited for him? I don't know the kind of lawyer he's going to get that would be able to sell that story saying he is not mentally stable, because he yelled out when he was getting into the courthouse today. He was yelling out, this is something about justice and something about this isn't fair to the American people or something like that. And news media are saying he may not be mentally stable. And if he's not mentally stable, and it's proven that it's not mental, that he's not mentally stable, but for how long has he not been mentally stable? Most of his friends and colleagues are saying he checked out like in October, like he never spoke with anybody and anything like that. So is he mentally unstable, or this was just really premeditated and actually well thought of? Put it in the chat. And do you think this guy is a hero, just like you guys say Daniel Penny is a hero? Let me know.
Hinged on attention. In fact, the attention in this case and the killing of Brian Thompson was helpful, no doubt, in allowing us to capture this killer, in alerting that individual at McDonald's this morning, and then having that individual contact police. But some attention in this case, especially online, has been deeply disturbing, as some have looked to celebrate instead of condemning this killer. Brian Thompson was a father to two. He was a husband, and he was a friend to many. And yes, he was the CEO of a health insurance company. In America, we do not kill people in cold blood to resolve policy differences or express a viewpoint. I understand people have real frustration with our healthcare system, and I have worked to address that throughout my career. But I have no tolerance, nor should anyone, for one man using an illegal ghost gun to murder someone because he thinks his opinion matters most. In a civil society, we are all less safe when ideologues engage in vigilante justice. In some dark corners, this killer is being hailed as a hero. Hear me on this. He is no hero. The real hero in this story is the person who called 911 at McDonald's this morning. The real heroes every day in our society are the women and men who put on uniforms like these and go out in our communities to keep us safe. This killer was not a hero. He should not be hailed. Mr. Thompson, I understand, was laid to rest earlier today in Minnesota in a private setting. As the conversation continues about this case, let's be mindful not to dehumanize him and make him just an avatar of a system that is disliked by many. He was a father, he was a husband, and he did not deserve to die like this on a sidewalk in New York City. All law enforcement was present here this evening. Law enforcement works best when it works together. In this case, you have the New York Police Department working together with the Altoona Police Department, working together with our Pennsylvania State Police and our partners at the federal level as well. Everyone came together to solve this case and keep the public safe. I again want to ask my fellow Pennsylvanians, if you have any information regarding this suspect or his travels throughout Pennsylvania, please share those tips with us immediately. And with that, I want to thank District Attorney Weeks for his important work today and invite him to the microphone to say a few words.
Thank you, Governor Shapiro. Good evening, everyone. I would echo the governor's sentiments. Law enforcement does work at its best when they work together. I'd also like to thank District Attorney Seidel. He and his staff came down from the Manhattan District Attorney's office today in record time to assist us at the Altoona Police Department. And as the governor stated, the state police, the Altoona Police Department, the FBI, the New York City Police Department, Logan Township Police Department, the Blair County Sheriff's Department, and other agencies all worked together today to do what needed to be done to seek justice. I often brag about how the community in Blair County isn't afraid to say something, to report a crime, to contact local law enforcement. And I've often touted how they've made their community, whether it be Altoona or somewhere else, a safer place to live. And today I submit that a resident from Altoona and the Altoona Police Department helped make New York City a safer place to live and helped kickstart the process to seek justice for a senseless killing. So again, I'd like to thank everybody, and it's my honor to introduce Deputy Commissioner Daugherty at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DA. On behalf of the New York City Mayor Eric Adams, my boss, Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch, wants to extend once again their appreciation to the Altoona Police Department, to your leadership team, the federals, state, local authorities, and especially to the customer at the McDonald's that seen something, says something to the McDonald's employee that called 911 and reported this individual inside of their restaurant. The men and women behind me, the detectives, some of these detectives I've said behind me haven't been home.
So we were streaming last night and people were like, McDonald's, boycott McDonald's. They cut that guy in McDonald's. Bro, relax, man. Relax. Oh, man. This next 4 years is going to be something. I can guarantee you that.
Since Tuesday when this incident happened. They've been working this case tirelessly around the clock looking for. That's dedication. That's their commitment to bringing this individual to justice is just standing behind me. And on behalf of the mayor and the police commissioner, they extend their thanks and appreciation to you as well. Here's a message to the criminal element that think that they want to commit a crime in New York City and cross state lines, county lines. The message is very clear. Police Commissioner Tisch's police department will find you and bring you to justice. Just look behind me. Thank you.
I think with that, we'll be happy to try and take a few questions.
Question, I guess maybe for the local enforcement about the arrest specifically today. I don't know.
We'll defer to Altoona Police.
I guess I'm curious if we could hear a little bit more about the dynamics. If you could touch the police there, we could hear a little bit more about the dynamics inside that McDonald's. I know there was some detail in the affidavit about what happened when the individual was asked if he was into New York. Could you speak a little bit to his demeanor and how that played out?
Sure. So it was a peaceful arrest, first and foremost. The officer quickly recognized the male as the suspect from the shooting. And within several seconds of the first contact, he had asked the suspect if he had been in New York City recently. And that really invoked a physical reaction from the suspect. He became visibly nervous, kind of shaking at that question. And he didn't really answer it directly. So that statement alone really said a lot. And the suspect didn't have to say a lot after that question to show that, he was very nervous at that point.
Was that the officer that the governor mentioned who's new on the job?
Yes, so Officer Fry's here to my left. Officer Fry, can you step this way a little bit? And then his partner that he was with, Officer Joe Detweiler.
Officer, could you maybe identify yourself and maybe describe what you're asking?
Yeah, Patrolman Fry, Tyler-Frye. So whenever we got on scene there, we were able to pretty much find where he was at in the restaurant. And as soon as he was wearing a blue medical mask. As soon as we pulled that down, or we asked him to pull it down, me and my partner and I recognized him immediately, just from what we saw in the media with photos, videos. We just didn't even think twice about it. We knew that was our guy, but he was very cooperative with us. Didn't really give us too many issues. Once we found out his identity, we took it from there.
How did it feel after 6 months on the job as a law enforcement officer to be part of
I can't say I was expecting it by any means, but it feels good to get a guy like that off the street, especially starting my career this way. It feels great.
Upon his arrest, has he made any statements since his arrest? Has he asked for a lawyer yet?
To my knowledge, he hasn't made any statements.
How long are you staying in Altoona? And
Thank you for tuning in to the live show. You know what time it is. It is your boy Genesis. Double tap your screen to get the likes up. And if you haven't, subscribe to the channel. Shout out to the moderator, Amanda. Amanda says, because there's more money in being sick than healthy. Is that true, chat? Y'all gotta reply, Amanda. I 1,000 actually. 100,000% approve that message from Amanda, because a lot of people are on medications in the United States. This is just what it is, okay? This is just the truth and the facts. Look, this is it. So, y'all put in the chat. Let me know if you approve Amanda's chat. Let me know if you approve Amanda's statement. But let's keep going.
where was he staying? And then was the gun on himself, or was it in like a car somewhere?
We are still investigating how long he's been in Altoona. There's still a lot of follow-up to do in this case. Again, the men and women behind me are assisting with that. So we're still looking into it.
I'm going to ask Lieutenant Colonel Bivens of the Pennsylvania State Police to address the question you just raised.
So there are a lot of things that need to be followed up yet in this investigation. Certainly, there were a number of items that were found on his person, in his backpack, that have been inventoried, and we've begun to do an analysis of some of those. There were written documents. There are electronic devices that are in the process of being downloaded. Search warrants are obtained. And so over the next hours and days, those efforts will continue. And we're going to take a closer look at all of the information that we can glean from that regarding his activities up until and during the time of the homicide, his flight from New York. And we know that he has been in Pennsylvania, excuse me, for several days. And so part of that investigation will also focus on trying to retrace his steps. We've already identified businesses, for example, that he frequented in this area and activities that he engaged in. That led us to more evidence. And so all of that is becoming kind of a mountain of evidence that has to be analyzed and looked at. I'm confident we'll have a much better idea of his activities over the past number of days in New York and in Pennsylvania. Additionally, we're also trying to determine that we don't have another actor or an accomplice out there. So this information will all be used to help us prove or disprove whether that exists and whether there were any other intended targets. So a lot of questions that are out there that are unanswered yet, but we have a lot of information that we can examine that hopefully will give us some of those pieces of data that we need. You asked, or someone asked about the interview. He was initially cooperative. He is not now. And so he has been arraigned and transported and will be securely housed pending the filing of additional charges in New York.
Governor, you mentioned that he was in Pittsburgh at some point. Is that correct? What
Yes.
do you know about that time in Pittsburgh?
We're not going to get into any more details at this time. We would like to hear from any Pennsylvanian or any Pittsburgher who had any sightings or any dealings with the individual. That's why I specifically asked for anyone with tips to share that with us.
Can you talk about the extradition to New York? How does that process work? I know that you have your piece here, but what happens with the New York part of it? And how long does it take? Thank you.
So that answer depends. Once the charging documents are filed in the state of New York, we will file a fugitive justice complaint against the defendant. He'll be brought before a common pleas judge shortly thereafter, when the defendant will be presented with the option to waive his extradition or to contest his extradition. If he waives his extradition, we of course will make him available to the NYPD and the Manhattan District Attorney's Office as soon as we're able to arrange his transportation there. If he contests it, that process typically takes between 30 and 45 days to do the requisite paperwork, but we do that all the time in our office, and that's kind of a normal procedure.
On the matter of the backpack itself right now, the backpack itself, you had the one that was in New York. Do we know if that's the same one that he had the time of the shooting there, or is this backpack that he had here the one that he may have acquired? And the findings inside, the gun, the silencer, and cash, some foreign currency as well. Is that correct?
I'll defer to someone else. I'm not going to speculate on any of the interpretation of the evidence. I'm going to rely on the officers doing the investigation to complete that and reach their conclusions.
Can we say that at this point he is a suspect in the hit on the United New York? Can we call him a suspect at this point? Obviously,
Yes, as we confirmed at his preliminary arraignment, with the permission of District Attorney Seidel, we expect charges to be filed forthwith.
Thank you for tuning in to the live show. Amanda says he was denied bail. Of course, what did he plead? I don't think he's plead anything right now. He's going to be moved from Pennsylvania to New York, so they would have to extradite him to New York from Pennsylvania, and he will face second-degree murder and several other charges. But he hasn't pled it. I mean, according to these guys, they found very, very incriminating evidence on him. The gun, I think they're talking about some mask and just some very, very incriminating evidence. So they're saying he's not even giving them a hard time. And when they did ask him about when was the last time he was in New York, they said he was shaky, he was nervous, he was anxious and all that. So right now he's in Pennsylvania. He's going to be extradited back to New York from Pennsylvania, and he will be facing the second-degree murder and several other charges, according to the research here by Forbes and CNN, and of course CBS.
And obviously, that I'm not going to speculate on that timing, but tonight or tomorrow or sometime in the very near future for homicide.
Any insight into a motive? Clarify one quick. Sorry, sir, can I just ask? In terms of the officers investigating this case, can you say any more about a suspected possible?
So at this point, we're not going to comment on that. I mentioned that there is a lot of information to go through. Certainly everything has been or will be shared with NYPD, but there is other information that really doesn't even pertain to that investigation. That, again, focuses more on his activities here in Pennsylvania and other travels. So all of that hopefully will shine more light on it. There is some information that gives us some insight into his thinking, but again, all part of the ongoing investigation. Way too early to discuss that.
As far as the NYPD, we're not going to be commenting on the investigation steps here. In the next couple of days, there'll be a media availability at One Police Plaza, and Commissioner Tisch will update. Commissioner Tisch and the Chief of Detectives, Joe Kinney, will update the media at One Police Plaza. But I will be happy to talk about that. The Commissioner Tisch and the New York City Mayor did FaceTime Officer 5 and then thanked them for their service. So that was he got a pretty cool phone call from the mayor and our police commissioner.
Do we know how he got to Pennsylvania? Was it through aircraft, train, bus? How did he arrive in Pennsylvania?
Again, we do have a good idea of that, but
I mean, this right here is just answering questions on how he was apprehended and all that. But people are saying, like the people in the chat right here, they're saying, is that the guy they actually caught in McDonald's, was that the guy? I am going to play you a video of the police moving him from their car to the courthouse, and listen to what he says here.
Guys, seriously, we need you to keep back though, so you don't get clips. Out there, we need you back.
So this is the police department taking him in. He's already on the orange jumpsuit anyway. But just watch closely and listen to what he says. It's been confirmed that this is the guy, okay? Amanda, this is the guy, according to the police.
Down.
Whoa, back up. That's completely out of touch. And it's an insult to the intelligence of the American people and the lived experience.
Like you heard right there, is saying this is an insult to the American people. So this is the same guy that was apprehended in Pennsylvania McDonald's. This intelligence was called in by a McDonald's worker, and they actually got the guy from McDonald's. And this is the guy from McDonald's saying that the intelligence of the American people, blah, blah, blah.
All right, let's dig deeper on this.
But his name is Luigi Mangione. The guy that was caught in McDonald's, his name is Luigi Mangione, guys.
Let's bring in Bill Daley, former FBI investigator. So what do you make of what he said there? It was a bit of a rant as he was being led into the courthouse. He said this is extremely unjust and an insult to the intelligence of the American people. I believe he finished it off by saying this is a lived experience, which would seem to perhaps relate to experiences that people who are acquainted with him have relayed to the media, saying that he had back surgery and was in extreme pain from time to time.
Mm-hmm. You know, John, this could be just a situation of him posturing himself, kind of knowing what's inevitable, that he's going to be facing proceedings, he's going to be facing a court, he's going to be facing a potential jury. And is it kind of posturing one way or the other? Is it posturing just because he's kind of acting out and maybe appears perhaps a bit erratic? Or is he kind of putting forward his innocence in some way? So we just don't know, but I think it is probably a calculated move by him. And we'll see how it all turns out. You know, meanwhile, the investigation, continues. And I think it is important for people to understand that all these elements of the investigation are very important, particularly because we need to make sure as investigators move forward, they're able to actually put Mangione actually on 54th Street that morning. Right now, we have a number of circumstantial pieces of evidence between the weapon that was found with him. Is that the same weapon that was used? There are a number of things, John, that need to come together in order to make this case more concrete.
Yeah, the only thing that we seem to know, I think with reasonable certainty at this point, is that the fake ID that he showed police officers yesterday in that McDonald's in Altoona was the same name that he had used to check into that hostel in New York City. We've now got that piece of video with subtitles on it when he was yelling to the press as he was led into the courthouse. Let's play that out for you now.
Down.
Whoa, back up. That's completely out of touch. And it's an insult to the intelligence of the American people and the lived experience.
Yeah. So that is as we thought it was. Or he said it's extremely unjust, the insult to the intelligence of the American people. This is a lived experience, perhaps relating to his own experience, having had some sort of injury or surgery, and then dealing with the healthcare industry after that. What I find interesting is that this guy has an affinity for the Unabomber, Ted Kaczynski. He did a review on the Unabomber's so-called manifesto. And there are some interesting parallels between the two. They're both highly intelligent. Kaczynski attended Harvard at the age of 16. Mangione went to the University of Pennsylvania, another Ivy League college. Both of them were math whizzes, though Kaczynski got a PhD. Kaczynski had a disdain for technology. That should be D-I-S-D-A-I-N, for technology. Mangione had a disdain for corporations. Kaczynski dropped out of society. Mangione dropped off the radar of family and friends. I mean, here we have two highly intelligent people who apparently, according to police, went completely off the rails. In your experience, how does that happen?
Well, you just don't know what happens in people's lives. We just don't know what that switch that may have been thrown that took this person from a course of being an accomplished individual, a person of privilege, to now being a suspect in this heinous act. You know what? Yesterday we did speak about this, John, and I mentioned in a different way the parallel between Ted Kaczynski and Unabomber is the fact that, who identified Ted Kaczynski was a family member. In this case, it was not a family member or anyone else he knew closely who came up and said, this is him in the photos. It happened to be a stranger in the McDonald's. So there are some parallels, and I think, it is interesting is that somebody who's highly educated, who is obviously, quite intelligent, there's something that happens along the way, and we just don't know what that is. But I think the key issue here is the fact of getting this evidence so that we don't have an issue when they go to court that they use the SOG defense, which is some other guy defense. We need to actually place him there with that weapon that morning. And I think going back to some of the early evidence, John, that was come upon early in this investigation was the wrapper, the bottle of water that he apparently discarded. Does that have DNA that places him there that morning? Is that weapon that was found on him, is that the same weapon that was used? And obviously ballistics and forensics will be able to tell us a bit more of that. All those things are going to be very key. Other than that, there's a lot of other things that are very circumstantial.
So they're saying that the gun that was used in that murder case was actually found on Luigi Mangione. And also there's some DNA found from the water bottle. So they're still investigating, of course, but every indication is towards this guy right now. And well, he's already been charged with second-degree murder anyway. But let's see what other info they get. But I'm almost sure this is the guy because it looks like him. If you look at his eyebrows, okay, look at his eyebrows and look at his smile. So if you do this, you can see his eyebrows and you can see his smile. But he has a full eyebrows and then he has of course a good smile, but it's most likely this dude.
Yeah. And we just don't want it to be, as we've seen in other trials, where they point the finger and say, oh, yes, all these things are true about him, but he did not pull the trigger.
All right. Well, we will follow this as it unravels. Bill Daly, good to have you with us today. Appreciate it.
Click here to...
Yes, sir. Thank you for tuning into the live show. Let's go.
There's been a stark difference in public and media reaction to the murder of United Healthcare CEO in the Daniel Penny trial. Now, Daniel Penny has been vilified leading up to and after his not guilty verdict. We saw disturbing posters plastered on New York City subway cars referring to the incident as a lynching. Al Sharpton called the verdict, quote, blatant legalization of civilian vigilantism. And CNN also called Penny a vigilante.
Later in the night, we're also going to talk about Penny and the verdict there. There you also have a victim who somebody determined did not deserve to continue living, right?
No.
Yeah, tell me which
Not
vigilante action is okay.
One is being proactive, right? So this kid who executed someone.
Founder of Black Lives Matter of Greater New York is now calling for black vigilantes.
Just like everybody else seeks justice on their own, just like everybody else has vigilantes, we need some black vigilantes.
That's right.
People want to jump up and choke us and kill us for being loud. How about we do the same when they attempt to oppress us?
That's total BS, okay? I mean, that's just total BS. They're trying to make this a racial issue. This is just not feasible. I don't see why anybody should even say anything like this. But is pained, is angry. I get it. You're allowed to lash out when you're angry, but still be responsible for your words and just stay composed. Of course, what happened to Jordan Neely on the train? He lost his life. I blame his family for letting him go around New York State without shelter. And it's just sad to see that he lost his life, really. I can never condone taking another person's life, regardless, except the person is actually about to do something bad to you. But Penny said he felt threatened and he did what he had to do. It is what it is. But I would never support, saying you need your own vigilante. And so we're back. This is what I've been trying to avoid this whole conversation. Okay. I don't want it to be the same thing that happened in 2020. Trump is just coming into office in like 40 days or 39 days. And this is what is going to come into. So they're starting Trump's term with this racial situation. This is the same thing that almost destroyed his first term. Now you're going to start it with the second term. This is just total BS.
But wait for it. The man accused of gunning down United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson is seen by some as a folk hero. New Yorkers celebrated the suspect with a look-alike contest shortly after the murder. Former Washington Post reporter, you won't believe this, Taylor Lorenz, called Thompson's murder joyful.
How can this make you joyful? This guy's a husband, he's a father, and he's being gunned down in the middle of Manhattan. Why does that make you joyful?
Of Americans that he murdered. So are the tens of thousands of Americans, innocent Americans, who died because greedy health insurance executives like this one push policies of denying care to the most vulnerable people.
Should they all be killed then? Should they all be killed, these healthcare executives? Would that make you even more joyful?
No, that would not.
Well, why not?
And,
why are you laughing?
I think because it wouldn't fix the system.
You seem to find the whole thing hilarious.
I find your question funny.
A bloke's been murdered in the street. I don't find it funny at all.
And the Washington Post at one point had that woman on payroll. She's no longer there. It's not a funny, laughing matter, and the Pennsylvania governor, Josh Shapiro, doesn't think so either.
In some dark corners, this killer is being hailed as a hero. Hear me on this. He is no hero. The real hero in this story is the person who called 911 at McDonald's this morning. This killer was not a hero. He should not be hailed.
The hero is indeed the McDonald's worker. I thought to myself, would I be able to recognize this individual? And I thought, no, but this brilliant McDonald's worker did. And Emily, here's what he got in return, he or she. This was the Reddit responses that were written to the stupid bleep that ratted out my baby Luigi Manangino. You will be dealt with. Out of solidarity, I will be boycotting all McDonald's in the area. I would suggest.
I'm telling you, man, people are saying Luigi Mangione is a legend. This is what they're calling this guy a hero, just like they're calling Daniel Penny a hero. Some people are saying Daniel Penny deserves a congressional golden medal. Some people are saying this guy right here, Luigi Mangione, deserves a congressional golden chain or whatever. It is what it is, okay? Everybody has their own perspective. Everybody has their own opinion on stuff like this. It's just wild when you hear people comment on stuff like this. Look, today I'm on chill, okay? It's Tuesday. I'm not gonna go back and forth. Whatever y'all believe it.
Suggest you consider doing the same. That McDonald's worker should get Employee of the Year and should be very proud of him or herself.
That's right. I think the way to deal with the fostered and fomented by social media, including the manifesto by alleged suspect, right? So the antidote to that, don't give it oxygen, don't publish it, continue showing Brian Thompson's face, not the murder suspect, say Brian Thompson's name, not the murder suspect. And to those platforms that still employ these journalists, that's the thing we talk about often, that when you give oxygen to these extremist views, when they choose to publish it, that is feeding into it, and it's only for profit. And I point out, too, I think it's as a side note, for the fact that instantly social media always identifies the Karen, go to work internet, tell me who this person was and their lives are ruined. I'm surprised it actually took so many days to identify this person who had multiple degrees and went to UPenn and had this wealthy family and a lawmaker cousin. I'm really shocked that it took the good work of a Good Samaritan McDonald's worker instead of the internet who knew this guy to begin with.
Very perceptive. I mean, sometimes I can't even tell if my husband got a haircut. There's no way I could identify a criminal.
Totally.
That person is pretty brilliant. I want to go back to Daniel Penny for a moment. And Paul, this is what the NAACP decided to post. The NAACP said the acquittal of Daniel Penny and the death of Jordan Neely has effectively given license for vigilante justice to be waged on the Black community without consequence. It's a painful reminder of the inequities in our justice system. Jordan deserved compassion. Instead, he was met with violence. And it goes on. I just want to lay out some facts. Jordan Neely was arrested 42 times. There was a Black civilian who helped Daniel Penny to subdue a man who was threatening to kill everyone on the subway. A Black woman afterwards called him a hero, thanked him, spoke to FoxNews.com. He is a hero. It was self-defense. I believe in my heart. He saved a lot of people that day and people who could have gotten hurt. These are facts. Why does the NAACP leave them out?
What, you're expecting facts to matter here, huh? You're a person.
As far as I'm concerned, this is adjacent to Luigi Mangione. But today's Tuesday. I'm not finna go back and forth.
Of faith. So anyway, all right, let's look at a couple of things. Number one, the majority of the people that were on that train car that he stepped up for were people of color. He's the hardest target on that car. He's a young, big guy. Marine, he's in shape. Easiest thing for him would have been to just stare at his phone and let it happen. According to the reporting, Neely was moving towards a mother and child, right? The Hispanic woman says she almost passed out. She was so scared. What if he didn't act and something happened? Would he not be vilified by the same characters? Number two, the CNN anchor, she should lawyer up because she just imputed to Daniel Penny the intent to commit a homicide on the air. Nice job. That's not even what he was charged with, okay? So she's way out of line and she should wise up. And let's just remember something. Does anybody think here, and this to me is the real metric, does anybody think that if Jordan Neely had done everything he did and was a white guy, Daniel Penny wouldn't have reacted?
No.
Nobody wants to see Jordan Neely dead, but that doesn't mean that Daniel Penny should go to jail for it.
You raised so many good points, and I hope he is able to go after these people who have defamed him. The New Yorker, and I'm summarizing here, I shared it yesterday, said, subway dancer strangled by Marine. That's what they said before the verdict was out. I hope Daniel Penny gets some form of accountability here.
And, to the person on CNN who apparently can't tell the difference between the cold-blooded execution, someone who was shot in the back on the streets of New York, and Daniel Penny protecting occupants of the train car from someone who said that he wanted to harm people on that train car, you are the threat to society, not Daniel Penny. You are the threat. And it really is telling. I'm actually worried here specifically about the moral confusion of Alvin Bragg, because now that charges have been brought, he is going to be the one assigned to prosecuting this case against the suspect, Luigi Mangione. We know that he is one of those people who apparently can't tell the difference between right and wrong. And I hope, again, that the New Yorkers step up and do what needs to be done, regardless of what Alvin Bragg decides.
Is he going to prosecute against any of these threats?
Right.
Prove to us that you're actually, it's all colorblind.
Marie, do you have faith in Mr. Bragg?
I do, actually.
Oh.
Look, I think that for many people, we don't think that he should have done nothing on the train. It's whether he could have subdued the threat without ending this life.
And the jury determined
he didn't end his life. He was breathing after the interaction.
I just took a breath. I was going to say there was a legal process. There will also be a civil case that is brought as well. So we will see how that plays out. And to your first point you made, I hope that McDonald's employee doesn't just get Employee of the Year, gets the reward that had been put out for finding him. That would be an even better way.
I wanted Donald J. Trump to get McDonald's Employee of the Year until this guy came about. Okay. So
we did.
Whew. These people, I feel like the news media are one of the instigators of chaos and division and all this stuff. Okay, now I heard Jesse say he wants Donald Trump to give Daniel Penny an award or something. You want him to start his term with that? You have the border, you have the economy, you have foreign policy, you have inflation, but you want him to start with Daniel Penny, causing more division. A lot of people do not already agree with that. Daniel Penny's acquittal, what do you call it? The decision that was made on Daniel Penny, he has been found not guilty and all charges has been dropped. And people do not agree with that. Okay, let's just say 20% or 30% don't agree with that. And majority of the 30% happens to be African Americans. And you already know that this man has always been accused of being racist, right? So now you want him to still give Daniel Penny an award, making him more liable to hatred that he already gets anyway. You want him to get more from the brown skin community. I mean, come on, man. Let him focus on the border, the economy, inflation, grocery prices, mortgage rate, interest rate, gas prices, foreign policies, and let him work on healthcare plan. Let the jury and the judge already said Daniel Penny is not guilty. All right, great. Go live your life, Daniel Penny. What do you mean give him an award? Give him an award for what? If the people want to give Daniel an award, fine. They should give him an award. But do not bring Donald Trump into Daniel Penny's situation. Y'all are just going to cause more division. This is the time to unite the country. Okay, I voted for the OG, the Don, the legend, the 45th, now the 47th president-elect. I do not subscribe to that. Let him do his work. His work ain't to pander to y'all and your feelings and how you think he should get some sort of congressional golden medal. No, his job is to be a commander-in-chief, secure the border, save the people of the United States from high prices and the homelessness, the homeless veterans. That's his job. His job is to make sure the veterans are well taken care of. Of course, Daniel Penny is a Marine veteran, but that doesn't mean that his whole movement should be calling him to the White House, televising all this stuff. And now, of course, the media is going to twist it like as this is the norm for the media. They twist anything the OG does. So if Trump brings Daniel Penny into the White House, I could guarantee you're going to see another 2020 BLM match. Okay, BLM matching around. Is that what y'all want? Y'all don't want this guy to do his job. Y'all don't want him to bring down the electricity bills and the gas prices, and you want him to be worried about deploying National Guard. That's what y'all want? It's like, come on, man.
Carrie Urban, Fox News legal editor, and Bobby Chacon, retired FBI agent. Great to see you both this morning. So much expertise between the two of you. Let's start with that point, Carrie. So if he contests being extradited, he doesn't have an attorney yet, so I don't even know how you contest it, but 45 days before he'd see the beginning of a legal process here?
Yeah, and I don't think there's going to be an issue ultimately in getting him back to New York. I think Governor Hochul will work with Governor Shapiro if he were to fight that. A public defender will be assigned to him at some point if he continues to languish without an attorney. But
are you surprised by that?
I am surprised given the fact that he apparently comes from a lot of money. So I am very surprised about the fact that his family hasn't gotten him a lawyer yet, or maybe they are in the process of doing this. I don't know. But if he were not to have a lawyer, that he didn't hire one, there would be a public defender assigned to him in some way. But I don't think there'll be an issue in getting him back to New York ultimately where he will see justice.
Bobby, I want to drill down on something that I don't think is being talked about very much. This man's face was everywhere. I mean, he was taking his mask down to like flirt with a woman early on at a cafe or at a store here in New York.
Yeah,
he was all over the cameras that are the city. Certainly not during his getaway, they think, in Central Park, because that place is basically dark with cameras, just a few. They do have drone coverage. So my question for you is, why didn't we see him everywhere? I mean, The whole country was alerted to this. I just wonder why we didn't see more. Social media is alive with him over the last 7 days.
Well, I think he was he was kind of hiding himself. I mean, he was acting as a hermit almost. My question, bigger than that, is, Harris, why didn't we hear from his family and friends, you know, these people that knew him and saw his face plastered all over the news? Now we're hearing that between 6 months and a year ago, he kind of went off the grid. That's even more reason if a friend or a family member saw him on the news saying, that's my cousin or that's my frat brother that went off the grid 6 months ago. Now I know where he is, and call the police. Why did it take someone at that McDonald's to kind of notice him? He didn't hide himself. He was an Ivy League frat boy. He had a lot of friends. They were the country club types. He was very social. So where were all these people in his life that knew him when in the last 7 days, when his picture was global, it was blasted globally? Why didn't anybody pick up the phone and call and say, I think that's the guy?
Yeah, or anybody. I mean, he was all over the place. I know you say he was a hermit. Here in New York, there's a lot of footage of him. He was moving around. He was leaving evidence. He was leaving, like, you know, little bullet casings were left behind by him that had words written on them, just little clues. We don't know if it was a game. We have no idea, but there was a lot there. Now I want to move to the other huge story that affects really millions of people. Because if someone can't come to your rescue in a desperate situation because others are feeling threatened, if there can't be an American hero to save the day, we're in a world of hurt. Well, now we don't have to worry about that in the case of Daniel Penny. New York and beyond has been divided after a jury acquitted Marine veteran Penny in the death of Jordan Neely. He was that erratic person I was just describing. They were all aboard a subway underground with passengers who were panicking. Penny's lawyers, right after the verdict. Let's watch.
Daniel, can you tell me how you're feeling about this right now?
You going this way?
Can you tell me how you're feeling?
He's feeling great, guys, and it's just a great day. It's just a great day.
Now, there have been calls for the Manhattan District Attorney, Alvin Bragg, who we know is soft on crime, far liberal. He ran on the words, I'm going to get Trump. So did Letitia James, the state's attorney general. I mean, there's a thirst here on that side of the equation in the law, and it's very much liberal. So here were his words yesterday. There were calls for him to resign. He lost this case after making a lot of hay about it and bringing it in the first place. Quote, as with every case, we followed the facts and the evidence from beginning to end. The jury has spoken now. We deeply respect the jury process, and we respect their verdict. He needed to come out ahead of all the protesting yesterday and say a few words like that and call for them to stay peaceful. He still needs to do that because not everybody respects the court's decision, the jury's decision. Protesters outside the courthouse yesterday could be heard inside the courthouse. And before the decision came down, I was asking, well, how does that affect the case? How long has that been going on? New York's Black Lives Matter leader with what really is a threat.
Stop begging this system to justify our lives. Stop begging this system for justice. When things happen to you, you step up and defend yourself.
You see what the media is doing? Y'all see what the media is doing? Even Fox News. I respect Fox News, but look, they're doing the same thing CNN does. They'll keep running this news, whereas they could run other situations that actually affect the country in a positive light. But now, the more you run this BS, the more people are going to get aggravated, get angry, especially brown-skinned folks. They're going to get angry and they're going to say, you know what? F this guy. He's just coming into office. You think you're not going to blame Trump for this verdict? People are going to be blaming Trump like he's the jury and the judge. He doesn't know anything about this, but because America is already on a divided scale already. Now, Trump was already pulling forward for unity, okay? When he was interviewed by NBC, you heard what he said. He said, I am going to be president for MAGA and as well for the people who are not MAGA. But now with the media pushing this, you would not be surprised if the media pushed this until January 20 when Trump becomes the president. They're going to keep pushing this. They're going to keep pushing this and causing more division. Now, racial politics over and over again, like 2020. Now, if they keep pushing this, this is going to spring up in March. People are going to march just like BLM in 2020. And that's how you want to start the 47th president-elect's term. The legend, the Don, with everything he's been through, 2 assassination attempts on his life, with the economy going upside down, with the border going helter-skelter, with foreign policies going wild. Y'all won't start the next term. This guy only has 4 years. He's not coming back. Y'all want to start his next term like this? Especially Fox. Fox should be the last media talking about this, instigating this, because he has a lot of work to do. OG has a lot of work to do, y'all. But if this comes to his front door, what do you think he's going to do? Not attend to it? He has to attend to it. He's not even gotten his nomination passed through Congress yet. He has that to think about. Now they're going to add this BS. Man.
Just like everybody else seeks justice on their own, just like everybody else has vigilantes, we need some black vigilantes. That's right. People want to jump up and choke us and kill us for being loud. How about we do the same when they attempt to oppress us?
Jordan Neely was threatening passengers aboard that subway. His words were, "Someone is going to die today." A very different reaction for many who are angry that the charges were brought in the first place. A lot of columns and opinion pieces being written. Here's a small sample. Stop electing soft-on-crime radicals like Alvin Bragg. Another. Daniel Penny's innocence and the shame of Alvin Bragg. Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett writes, Bragg has done lasting damage. And another here, Daniel Penny may have been acquitted, but the bad guys still won. The New York Post cover. Enough is enough. Jurors reject Bragg's indictment of a man who protected subway riders. Carrie, I come to you on the legality of some of what was said yesterday. That was a small, little clip from that man calling for black vigilantes. There were also threats from a BLM leader, I guess is what you'd call her yesterday, a lot of news conferences by the protesters, to burn stuff down in the city, to burn cars. Those are threats. Those are promises of violence. Alvin Bragg should be busy today on that.
Look, it doesn't come as a surprise that BLM said what they said. They are a discredited and disgraced organization that is driven by racism and bullying. And, we never see them showing up in Chicago with all of the gang warfare that's going on there when you have when you have African-American people dying all the time thanks to gang violence and the like. Where are they then? They're not there. But Harris, look, if I were advising the Department of Justice as far as day one actions with respect to the soft on crime prosecutors, with Alvin Bragg being at the very, very top, here's something very specific and practical they can do. They need to take a look at the Office of Justice programs, which is within the Department of Justice. OJP, that's the acronym for the division, they give out over $3 billion a year to cities across America to help with their law enforcement activities. If I were DOJ, on day one, I would get a list of all of the grants that's been given out, and I would match it up against cities that are being run to the ground by these progressive prosecutors. And I'd say, you know what? You're not getting millions of dollars from us anymore because you're not doing your job. You're not enforcing the law. You're downgrading felonies to misdemeanors, which Alvin Bragg, again, has done that over and over again. You prioritize political persecutions and prosecutions over actually keeping people safe. Enough.
Yeah. Bobby, from what you're seeing here from an FBI perspective, I am curious, with threats on the ground, is the FBI working some of this right now? And look, we hope it goes away. We don't want to give it more oxygen to make it bigger, but we do have to cover the fact that there are threats out there, and they're based on race, and they're coming from a group that calls for black vigilantes against people who are not black.
Yeah, I would think this is inciting violence, and that's a crime in and of itself. So I think you're right. I think hopefully, and I worked in the New York office of the FBI for many, many years, and I hope that they're following this situation, because these are people that are out there breaking the law. They're breaking the law just by inciting that violence. The violence doesn't have to occur, thankfully, for that to be a crime, and they should be charged with it. If Alvin Bragg was a responsible prosecutor, he would be charging these people. He'd be at least threatening to charge them. I think it's time to get rid of the immunity for prosecutors. The left talks all about getting rid of qualified immunity for police officers. I think you want to stop this. You want to make them really think about it before they bring a prosecution. You open them up to civil liability. When I was an FBI agent, I carried $2 million worth of liability insurance just in case somebody sued me. I think it's time for prosecutors to face those same types of penalties, because the Bar Association won't do it. The Bar Association is run by the left. They will not call these people to account. I think that civil liability on the part of prosecutors who abuse their office, it's time for that to happen.
Bobby Chacon and Carrie O'Brien, I say every day.
Man, you're still going to say this same news tomorrow and next week. They're going to keep it alive. Just like Amanda says, it helps their ratings. Absolutely. I think this whole thing should be tossed out. Now, they can leave the Luigi Mangione with the United Healthcare CEO, open to the public, because that's actually something that matters. Okay, healthcare matters to the United States, but not some altercation that happened on the train that it's already settled. Okay, the jury already made their verdict. Everybody's Gucci, and people are having, disputes. They could settle that in their own spaces, but putting it on the mainstream media, inciting division, and keep it going just for ratings, according to Amanda, that's just total BS. Anyway, just like the 47th do not already have so much going on for him in his new incoming administration. Check this out.
The president-elect has started sketching out some of his immigration policies. It happened in a new interview. So his pledges continue for mass deportations of criminals here illegally as promised. His promises didn't stop there.
You promised to end birthright citizenship on day one. Is that still your plan?
Yeah, absolutely.
The 14th Amendment, though, says that, quote, all persons born in the United States are citizens. Can you get around the 14th Amendment with an executive action?
We're going to have to get a change. We'll maybe have to go back to the people, but we have to end it.
Joining us in our fifth seat, Cristina Jimenez, co-founder of United We Dream, a nonprofit immigrant advocacy organization here in the U.S. Cristina, can you get your reaction to how the president-elect tried to parse some of these other policies beyond the mass deportations?
Well, I think I just want to remind everyone that when he and the future administration is talking about their immigration policy, they are talking about separation of families and going after anyone that they can get a hold to for deportation. I know this because I was formerly undocumented. I have a brother who's a DACA recipient. And I know this because I was working with immigrant communities in his first administration. And so I know that under the disguise of going after people that have committed crimes, they use a frame of criminality to go after everyone. Under the past administration with Trump, DACA recipients were deported. Families were separated not only at the border as people came here seeking refuge, but also in the interior of the United States. So we're talking about children, families, and I think that we need to take this seriously.
Scott, I want to come to you because I do find it interesting that during his first term, the president did engage in this family separation policy as a deterrent, right? It was like, don't come here because this will happen. And now when asked this question about families with mixed status, he didn't talk about separation, right? He was like, basically, maybe everyone should go. Do you think that reflects some kind of shift after that first experience in the first term?
Yeah, I thought his answers on that and on really everything else on the immigration portion of the interview were eminently reasonable, fit with his campaign promises, are politically popular, and showed some pragmatism even on the Dreamers issue. He talked about finding a solution for the Dreamers and an overall immigration deal. But make no mistake, the immigration platform that he laid out in the campaign is popular. People want him to do something about it. The family separation issue, I mean, he clearly said he doesn't want to separate families. So I think what he's laying out Republicans are going to support it. You may even get a few Democrats to support it if it is a comprehensive deal, which the American people desperately want.
Hillary, you're shaking your head a bit, and I know that for Democrats, the whole conversation around dreamers, undocumented young people who are brought here on their own, it's just been this like kind of long-running saga. Can you talk about like what is the kind of Democratic argument about this point if Republicans believe they have a mandate to take this level of action?
Well, I think Democrats should be and have been sort of much more moderate about this. Yes, asylum needs much more scrutiny, and there are significant numbers of undocumented workers where people are worried that there is criminality, but those people are actually identifiable. That does not require the sweep that I think people are legitimately afraid of. Also, I think what he didn't say was almost as important as what he did say. He seemed to imply that naturalized citizens don't belong in the United States. And then I thought, well, sorry, dude, aren't you married to a naturalized citizen? Are you gonna, like, is Melania and her father, are they all of a sudden not legitimate Americans?
Bunch of cap, on Kaepernicks. He never said anything about naturalized citizen. I mean, his wife is a naturalized citizen. His parents are naturalized citizens. I mean, what in the world? His mom? Like, what are you even saying? Most of these people just say things that he didn't say. This is what I'm saying. He already has issues he has to deal with. Now you're going to add Penny and Neely. You shouldn't add more issues to this guy's table. Let him work on what he needs to work on.
Americans.
I don't think that's true.
Well,
I think
no. I'm sorry. When you talk about birthright and citizenship, that's kind of what people are thinking all day.
His priorities were clear. People with deportation orders, violent criminals, that's where they're going to start. And that is really popular.
That's where they should end. I totally agree with that.
There's a lot of fear-mongering going on about
I just think that we need to, I do think we need to look at not only what he's saying, but what he did. Like, there's a track record. Actions speak louder than words. Mm-hmm. They went after everyone in the last administration. So I just don't think we need to fall for that trap. And on the point about, DACA recipients, my brother is a DACA recipient. I was, formerly undocumented, part of the Dreamer movement that was able to win DACA under the Trump administration. And when we engage in very credible bipartisan...
She just said she won the DACA movement under the DOJ. Oh my goodness. You won it under the DOJ and now you're complaining.
Efforts to pass legislation. What did Trump do? He killed every single bipartisan deal. And the last one, let's remember, he killed it by using language I will not use here to refer to Black and brown immigrants when we were talking about immigration policy.
What we do hear Democrats talking about, we need to be more moderate, they will say, right? We need to talk in different ways about immigration. We need to be tougher on immigration. That kind of we need to language I'm hearing from Democrats a lot. Where does that leave an activist like yourself in the middle of this discussion?
For me, I think that we need to have a real conversation about the immigration system and the laws that we need. And quite frankly, I'm not going to be here to also defend where Democrats have gone wrong on this issue. Our movement is actually quite independent, and we have been on opposite side with Democrats as well. But the thing here is that this is about a conversation, to your point about birthright citizenship, about who gets to be an American and the soul of this country. And when we're talking about taking away birthright citizenship, when we're talking about not caring about deporting children who are U.S. citizens, separating them from their parents, I think we're talking about who gets to have full protection under the Constitution.
And I think that goes to the origin of the 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment was created for Black people who had been enslaved, who are now free. It was one of the Reconstruction Amendments, the 13th, 14th, and 15th. And the 14th declared birthright citizenship specifically for Black people. So this isn't just a Latino issue. This is an issue about who you go after when you're finished with the Latinos. Who do you go after after you do that? This is something that Black people, this is something that Black people should be very concerned about.
Every single, I'm telling you, He already has too many problems he has to deal with. It is the right duty. It's the right duty for his people to make sure he has less issues to deal with, so he can focus on the things that really matters. Because these people are not gonna let him rest. Like, they will continue coming after him. You know what they say? You live long enough to become the villain. You were the hero, and now you're the villain. That's what is gonna happen to this dude.
Running here, okay? They were taken here. There is a big difference between being pulled out of your continent into this continent and you deserve rights.
Okay, here we go.
Versus people who are coming into this country without obeying by the laws.
Why was the 14th Amendment created?
To help the people who were brought here against their will.
Right.
Okay?
And who
these
are those
people? These are the black people.
Okay.
These are people
And
who
so
are coming
therefore,
here.
that's why I'm making the point
they're
that I'm
coming here
making.
voluntarily against the law. Christina, what you said about the system
Was
being
it
broken,
lawful to enslave
nobody
black
could
people?
disagree with
Yeah,
you.
no, it's
No
not
one could
working.
disagree.
But
Come
we
on.
want to have a real. Look, all of us here benefit from immigrant labor.
I was just
If
going to
you
say,
just like
this
came, took the train, you ordered delivery from a
100%.
restaurant, or you had a nice meal at a restaurant, we all here depend on immigrant labor. And what he's talking about is going after families, going after workers. and
No,
going after
he
entire
never
communities
said
will
that.
destroy not
Talk
only
about criminals. I
families.
talk about criminals.
I think that there's a real
this is-
need, though, to try and maybe this is where Democrats should be adding value and maybe aren't adding enough value, to really not just look at individuals, but to look at what this country needs and where people are actually getting jobs and working. Because our country does depend on immigrant labor in all sorts of industries. And that's something where, to be honest, Donald Trump cares about growth, economic growth, as do Democrats and immigrant activists. And so, when Christina says there needs to be a thoughtful conversation about this, the rhetoric needs to go away. You do need a thoughtful conversation.
You can't say we need immigrant labor and then have people here sustaining major parts of our economy, and they say, oh, by the way, we don't want you, we're going to deport you. So we really need to have
We obviously are a nation
a
of
conversation.
immigrants, and we do use immigrant labor in this country, and it's very important. But you can't have a country without laws. And the political reality is that the American people believe the border is not secure. They believe the immigration system is a mess. They believe the politicians in Washington have failed. And they believe this has gone on and on and on. And a major reason he won the election is to clean it up. And part of cleaning it up is saying, if you came here illegally and you don't obey our laws, we're not giving you special privileges anymore. That's the political bottom line.
Yeah, but you know what? He didn't clean it up last time.
Right. He didn't, right.
It's not that easy.
He did a better job than Joe Biden. Why did Joe Biden throw out all of his executive orders on day one that led to this crisis?
a better job traumatizing over 5,000 children, separating
How many
children
children has this administration lost track of? Do you know? It's tens of thousands.
Yeah, the Trump
tens of
administration made
thousands.
it impossible to have any way to be able to
Where
reunite.
have you been the last 4 years, honestly? I mean, the Biden administration
nobody's done a good job with
has
this,
done
Scott, but,
nothing but make this worse. The political reaction to this in November was to go back to Trump because they believed he had it under control and could get it under control.
Jennings, you hear in that ending birthright citizenship.
This has been
in that vote, I mean.
This has been a long-standing argument of some on the right who are immigration hardliners. I assume it'll be litigated. To me, the most critical issues are border security, deport the criminals, people with deportation orders. That's where you got to start.
Okay.
And the DACA thing,
Probably,
which he said in the interview, is
you're
is a
limited
vital
there, you'd
issue.
probably be all right.
There you have it. Bunch of BS. That's not even. He's already made it clear from the gate. From the gate, it's been clear what needs to be done. But here we are, going back and forth on issues that has been decided upon. But this is what we do every single time. Go back and forth.
The Justice Department's watchdog just releasing this bombshell report saying that Donald Trump's DOJ, improperly subpoenaed phone records and emails of 2 members of Congress and their 43 staff members in 2017.
Everybody's just scared that Kash Patel is going to come after them. Of course, Kash Patel is a conservative. He's strong OG fan, I know for sure. But, I mean, Kash Patel has been fully vetted by a lot of people, like Congress, a lot of people in like the old people that used to do their representations. They already vetted this guy. Veterans too have vetted this guy, but he has to go through Congress.
You know, both Republicans and Democrats, as well as several reporters swept up in this. One of those staffers is Trump's own pick to run the FBI, Kash Patel, when he was a staffer on the House Intel Committee. The subpoenas are related to alleged leaks of classified information to the media, including CNN, during congressional investigations into what was called Crossfire Hurricane. You may remember that as the code name of the FBI's investigation into connections between Trump's campaign and Russia during the 2016 election. I want to go straight to Evan Perez now on this. Tell us why these IG findings are such a big deal, Evan.
Well, this is a much bigger, much broader sweep of members of Congress and their staff than we knew about. I mean, we've previously heard from Adam Schiff and from Eric Swalwell, two representatives. Schiff is about to be a senator of California, and we had heard them publicly discuss that they had been notified by their providers, by their service providers, that their records had been seized by the Justice Department earlier. Now, this is a set of leak investigations that happened beginning in 2017, went for about 2 to 3 years. And so, again, we had heard from those two members. What we did not know, Pam, is that there were 43 staff, both Democrats and Republicans. As a matter of fact, there were about 20 Republicans and 20 or so Democrats whose records were seized. And among those was Kash Patel, who was at the time a staffer for Devin Nunes, the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. Now, one of the things that this report says that there was no indication that partisan politics played a role in the targeting of these people, but a key part of these these investigations, of these tactics, right, to seize these records, is that the Justice Department required a non-disclosure order, meaning that the service providers couldn't say that that the records had been turned over. Google, Apple, a lot of these companies have a 6-year limit before they notify members of Congress, in this case, media members whose records were seized. So you have no option to really fight these subpoenas to try to make DOJ show what it has to do here. And so the big finding here is that they did not really do the work. They really didn't have any reason to seize these records, except that these people had proximity to some of the classified information.
And it just raises a lot of questions about, separation of powers with co-equal branches of government, and whether this was an abuse of that with the way that they handled this investigation, with, not going through the proper court process, not notifying the proper people at DOJ, and it does include reporters, as you noted.
Right, exactly. In this case, we had previously reported that reporters, including Barbara Starr and people at the at the Washington Post and the New York Times, their records were seized as part of various leak investigations. This is all happening under Donald Trump's Attorney General, Jeff Sessions. And in this case, Sessions himself was not aware of the scope of these investigations. That's according to this own report. So how
does the Attorney General not know about this? It's
right,
pretty stunning.
Exactly. And I think that's part of what is so stunning about this.
Any indication Donald Trump knew when he was president?
He did not know. It didn't appear that it even got to that level.
Okay.
This was being handled by people at the Justice Department, prosecutors who were essentially leak hunting. And this was their focus because the disclosure of this information they found was a problem. And so the question is, why is that process was that process in place? Now we will mention that the Justice Department under Merrick Garland has put into place new rules, both on the news media. Seizing their records, they have to exhaust a lot of other things before they can even do this, and they have to notify leadership about it. Same thing with members of Congress. They need to be able to tell supervisors before they even go to this extraordinary step.
Okay. Evan Perez, thank you so much. And according to this new DOJ Watchdog report, as we were just discussing, one of those staffers improperly subpoenaed appears to be Trump-owned pick to run the FBI, Kash Patel, when he was a staffer on the House Intel Committee. Joining us now is the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Republican Congressman Mike Turner of Ohio. Congressman, thanks for joining us. Your reaction to this report that your committee, when you were on it, was improperly targeted by DOJ back in 2017.
Right, Pamela. Well, obviously, this report lays out outrageous behavior by the Department of Justice, where members of Congress and staff of the Intelligence Committee, the committee that I chair, had phone records and email records that were accessed by the Department of Justice without court review. Now, this affects, as the report says by Inspector General Horowitz, the constitutional authorities and the individual constitutional rights of the individuals that were impacted. Now, even though the Attorney General now says that they're going to put into place some protections for these processes of the Department of Justice, it's clearly insufficient. We need to pass statutes that can require a court review and authorization. Actually, in this process that the Department of Justice went to access these records, the courts didn't even know that the Department of Justice was accessing emails and phone records of members of Congress and their staff merely because they had access to classified information. This is a grave constitutional violation.
And as Evan just noted, it appears from this report that the Attorney General at the time, Jeff Sessions, didn't know about this. Donald Trump, he was president, but as we know,
you have to remember also, Pamela, you also have to remember Jeff Sessions was recused from many of the cross-hurricane and Russia hoax investigations that were going at the time. So it's not surprising that some of these he would not have been involved in, but the report does indicate that by processes at the time, the Department of Justice did not require that the Attorney General be notified. The new rules that are put in place by Attorney General Garland would require the Attorney General be involved. Those rules, I think, are very important. It's great the Attorney General has done that, but it is not enough. This requires, I think, absolute court review, and we're going to make certain that there are statutes that go in place because this affects the constitutional workings of Congress.
How significant is it that Trump's pick to lead the FBI was ensnared in this? Kash Patel.
Well, it really shows that he understands the weaponization that has happened of the FBI, the Department of Justice, against Americans and really against our own government. I mean, here you have the executive branch, in effect, spying on Congress. That weaponization goes right to the heart of really what we expect of the oversight processes. I mean, here Congress is doing its oversight, and they access the email records, the phone records of members of Congress and their staff merely because they had access to classified information. They were doing their jobs here at Congress. That can't be, but we need to have statutes in place that both protect members of Congress and hold these people accountable so this doesn't happen again.
And just to reiterate to our viewers who may just now be joining, this again was happening when Donald Trump was president. This was Donald Trump's Department of Justice. Kash Patel, for his part, has said he would go after members of the media, either criminally or civilly. Should this be a warning to Kash Patel about how the DOJ and FBI wield their power moving forward?
Well, absolutely. Kash Patel, who I have a great regard for, certainly understands the aspects of the deep state, and that is those individuals who really look at the workings of government, the weaponization of government, and use them to both go after, I think, the workings of government. Here we see members of Congress, their staff that were targeted, and certainly we see both, civilians and individuals who at times are targeted in ways that their constitutional rights and their individual rights are impacted. Here with this report, we have the Inspector General specifically saying that the constitutional authorities of Congress were impacted.
So you talked about these new rules that the current AG Garland put in place in response to how this investigation for 2017 was conducted. What I hear from you is you would like to see the incoming administration keep those rules and actually add on to those rules to provide further protections in how members of Congress and members of the media are investigated, right?
Right. So what Garland is doing is basically within the Department of Justice, within the Attorney General's office, raising the scrutiny, the higher, echelon of the review before they pursue subpoenas or review of members of Congress or their staff. But I believe that it requires actual notice and a higher review, a basis for court review. You shouldn't just have one branch of government being able to access the documents and subpoenaing another branch of government. I think this requires court review. There certainly are circumstances in which those documents should be able to be accessed, but this shows absolutely abuses of authority that are going to require statutes.
Very quickly, in order to appoint Kash Patel, we were just talking about President-elect Trump would have to fire Christopher Wray, a man he also appointed. Do you think Wray deserves to be fired?
I think that, that President Trump, as he comes in, is going to have a lot of things to balance.
Of course, if he's nominating Kash Patel for the new director of the FBI, I mean, of course, somebody would have to be fired or resign. And
certainly deserves to put in place a team that responds to both his needs, and I think he's going to lay out what that team is going to be.
All right, Congressman Mike Turner, thank you for your time.
I mean, that's just simple common sense. He's the president-elect and will be the president, so what?
A former Democratic stronghold in Texas flipping red for the first time in 100 years. Look at those numbers. Our next guest is a longtime Democrat and top elected official in Laredo who says his party is leaving behind Texans and the values that they hold dear. Judge Tano Tiarina joins us now with a big announcement. Good morning to you, Tano.
Good morning. Good morning
Good morning.
to my Fox.
Well, we
Merry
are
Christmas.
glad you are here. Merry Christmas, Judge. All right, so Judge, why are you a Democrat?
Well, why, that's not really the question. The question should be, I've made a decision after careful thought and prayer and discussions with my family and community. And over the years, I've watched the Democratic Party shift further and further to the left and leaving the values that I hold dear to my heart. I've always been a conservative. And the radicalization of the National Democrats pushed me away a long time ago. And for that reason, I'm proud to announce that today I will be leaving the Democratic Party and joining the Republican Party, and I'm proud of that.
Okay, very good, Judge. So a lot of people in your area might say, well, it's only because Donald Trump won in your area. You're doing this so you can win the next time around. What would you say to them?
Well, people think of others the way one thinks, and I get it. It's just the way it is. But unfortunately, I have a moral compass, and I cannot, answer for anybody or let anybody know what they want to do. But for me, I've been seeing this go so further left. You have we need to have border security. I think it's a little bit more. Oil and gas industry has been, threatened here in South Texas, and then to be able to see everything that's going on from our, the woke movements, from the boys playing in girls sports and whatnot. Hey, listen, it's something that I had to do. Yeah. It's something that's dear to my heart, and I have a moral compass that I need to continue moving forward.
Yeah, that does not fly in South Texas. I used to live in San Antonio. Yeah, no. What's the reason, do you think, that Donald Trump won in your area? Why is it changing in that area? Is it the border?
Absolutely. I think a lot of the people here, first of all, when we look at down here in South Texas, our Democrats really are not the same as national Democrats. We're very conservative for the most part. Okay. So I think everybody started to understand and realize what was going on these last 3 to 4 years, to be able to see what's going on through the border and everything like that. Hey, it was as a county judge, it was a huge effect on us, not only financially, but a burden wise to be able to security wise, to secure our borders too. So I think with Donald Trump and what he's going to do and some of his initiatives, I think it's going to be good.
Well, Judge Tiarina, thank you so much for coming on. Congratulations. I hope you get a good response from your constituents. Thank you so much. God bless you.
God bless you. Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Merry Christmas to you.
Everybody is becoming Republican. Straight up. Food of it tomorrow on Fox.com. Whoa. Told you guys they're never going to let this rest. Danielle Penny interview. Told you guys they're never going to let this rest. Adding more fuel to the fire, and Trump already has so many issues to deal with, but it is what it is. People say it's good for their ratings, so yeah, they're gonna keep on with it. Anyway, we're gonna stream it too, so shoot, let's go.
We are seeing Luigi Mangione being transferred one more time from this courthouse back to that correctional facility. And this was the image just a little bit ago in Blair County as he is facing that extradition to New York as he faces murder charges in the killing there of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. This was the scene. He was very animated, yelling to reporters just before the proceeding taking place there in Western Pennsylvania, but quiet on the way out. So some big news, big developments, as the judge will have 14 days to rule on this extradition, as Mangione will fight this. All right, we're also hearing from the attorney for him, the 26-year-old Tom Dickey. Let's take you out to some of these comments here on Live Now from Fox. Plenty of media.
Thank you for tuning in to the live show. You know what time it is. Double tap your screen, subscribe to the channel. Kai Sharp says Luigi is a coward. Jax says 100% a coward. Well, I'm glad people still believe in common sense. Shout out to these two guys. Anyway, so Luigi now has a lawyer, and his lawyer is going to speak to the media right now.
Curious, let's dive into these comments.
A request that you made, though, about informing the corrections department about something, and I didn't understand what you were asking.
Not really. Oh, no, I think all I asked was the sheriffs to keep my client around for a little bit so I could talk to him.
And what did you discuss?
Well, I'm not going to tell you that. You're kidding, right? You've been on this.
Sir, your client said something to reporters as he was walking in about this being an insult to the American people. Do you have any comment on that?
I have to take a look at that. No, I don't have any comment on that. I just know that, I haven't seen it, so I can't comment on something I haven't seen or heard.
Any comment on the outpouring of support there's been for him online?
No, I mean, people are entitled to their opinion, and like I said, if you're an American, you believe in the American criminal justice system, you have to presume to be innocent, and none of us would want anything other than that if that were us in those shoes, and so I'm glad he has some support.
Listen, Nick, you just said a moment ago that that's what lawyers do when telling their clients to be quiet. What did you mean by that?
Well, no, I mean, because I'm going to do all the talking, it's you have the right to remain silent, and I believe in that right.
All right, and you are Thomas, T-H-O-M-A-S?
T-H-O-M-A-S, yes, middle initial M-D-I-C-K-U-R.
Do you still have plans on the press conference later today?
Yeah, a little bit. I'm sorry.
What's on the project?
You know what? I haven't received anything. I got paperwork, and I want to meet with the district attorney, and we'll have hearings. We'll be able to see all that, but I haven't seen anything.
Are you, as a human being, aware of what happened in New York over the last week? Were you aware of this before you were retained?
I mean, I don't have a whole lot of time to follow the news. I, of course, knew of it, but I don't follow a lot of things sometimes in the news because sometimes the press gets things wrong. Like I said, I was very irritated, getting some backlash already that some news agency had indicated we waived the we waived the extradition, and that's what irritates lawyers like me is if you're going to print it, get it right.
Do you find it surreal that you're now representing the guy they've been looking for?
Yeah, I don't know. No.
Is this the biggest case you've ever been on?
Yeah, they're all big. All my clients, whether it's a speeding ticket or whether it's a death penalty case, which I am qualified to do death penalty cases in Pennsylvania, so they're all big. All my clients are equally important to me.
Can you just explain to regular folk what's going to happen, the timeline from now?
Like I said, probably something maybe in about the next month. Like I said, the judge set some motions, some deadlines, and they're going to have to come up with some things. We're going to have to come up with some things, and we're going to move forward with that. So, just kind of pay attention to that.
Right. It seemed like on the bench you guys were sharing a little laugh. Have you formed a little friendship with him?
Sharing on the bench? What do you mean on the bench?
When you were sitting up there at the table, you were kind of... have you formed a little friendship with him?
Yeah, I mean, he's my client, and, I want him to have trust and faith in me, and I have trust and faith in him, and, yeah, I mean, we're human beings, and we have a relationship.
Is he going to have a trust in the system? Is he going to have a trust in the system?
Well, I'm trying to, that's why I talk about presumption of innocence, things like that. I'm hoping to instill that trust in the system with it. Again, I can't comment any further on that.
Do you have any concern about his health, mental health? You have to reach out to explain
I won't comment on that. That doesn't mean I do or I don't, but I just...
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. You're very welcome, folks. Thank you. Nothing, just an attorney-client relationship. You know what I mean? And that's what we do. Try to form a bond.
Your name again, one more time, please.
Thomas, T-H-O-M-A-S, middle initial M as in Mark, Dickey, D-I-C-K-E-Y.
And were you retained by them? Or?
Thomas
I'm not
Dickey.
court appointed. I was retained. That's all.
Are you local? Where are you coming from?
My main office is in Altoona.
And you have anything that you can share about your conversations with him or state of mind or anything?
No, I don't.
What do you have to say?
Thank you, sir. Pardon me? I didn't give a statement. Now you answer questions. I can't remember everyone.
Can you just, for those of us who couldn't go in there, sir, what happened today?
Well, what happened today is he could have, there was a extradition proceeding. We did not NOT, add that on there, okay? Because if you're reporting that earlier that we did, that did not happen. We did not waive extradition. We're contesting extradition. We're going to fight this along the rules and with the constitutional protections that my client has, and that's what we're going to do.
How's his family doing?
I'm not going to comment.
Did you say why he didn't want to waive extradition, or?
No, that's an attorney-client communication, and
Who retained you? Is it the family?
I'm not going to get into that.
How is he doing? Have you talked to him about his last 24 hours?
You guys, no, I haven't. I'm here as a lawyer, and that's what I was.
And what's next, sir?
The extradition proceeding, this process is going to move forward, and so I'm anxious to be looking at information.
Is there a new court date? Another court date?
Not yet. Yes, sir.
Who do you like in the Pens game? That's a real question. Thank you.
Hopefully, just to answer that one, because I don't play favorites, let's see if the Pens cannot blow a lead, and hopefully they'll win.
What about Penn State?
Amen. We're Penn State fan. I hope they can do better than they did the other night.
Yes. Will you be filing a habeas corpus petition?
Yes.
Fire free. Thank you, sir. James.
Okay.
Sir, can you spell your name for us?
Yes.
All right, just listening in there. That's Thomas Dickey, the attorney.
This is like the first time I'm listening to an attorney who is actually, working with someone like Luigi Mangione, and is actually answering questions, and all the questions at that, being, just being kind, talking to the press and regular random people willing to ask questions. That's actually, I don't know, brave of him. I guess, I don't know. Who knows?
Daniel Penny breaking his silence in an exclusive interview with Judge Jeanine Pirro. That's going to be streaming tomorrow on Fox Nation, just one day after a jury in Manhattan cleared him in the subway chokehold death of Jordan Neely. The former Marine revealing what was racing through his mind in the moments when he was on the subway floor, subduing Neely, a schizophrenic homeless man who was high on K2 and railing violently at passengers.
He was just threatening to kill people. He was threatening to go to jail forever, go to jail for the rest of his life. And now where I'm on the ground with him, I'm on my back in a very vulnerable position. If I just would have let go, now he turns.
Why is that a vulnerable position?
Well, if I just let him go, I'm on my back now. He can just turn around and start doing what he said to me. So
killing,
hurting.
The former Marine enduring years of vicious left-wing attacks who vilified him as a racist. But Penny has no regrets, and here's why.
What in you caused you to want to get involved?
I mean, I'm not a confrontational person. I don't really extend myself. I think this type of thing is very uncomfortable. All this attention and limelight is very uncomfortable, and I would prefer without it. I didn't want any type of attention or praise, and I still don't. The guilt I would have felt if someone did get hurt, if he did do what he was threatening to do, would never be able to live with myself. And I'll take 1 million court appearances and people calling me names and people hating me just to keep one of those people from getting hurt or killed.
Daniel Penny also sending a message to liberal city leaders whose policies led to what happened on that subway. Watch.
These public officials would do something so self-serving.
But how does it serve them to hurt you?
Just political gain. I mean, these are their policies that are, and I don't mean to get political. I don't really want to make any enemies, really, although I guess I have already. But I mean, these are their policies that have clearly not worked, that the people, the general population, are not in support of, yet their egos are too big just to admit admit that they're wrong.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey,
Now, I still have nothing to say to Danielle Penny, really. There you have it. Danielle Penny did an interview with Fox, and we just heard a little bit. And he's talking about potential victims that may be hurt on the train versus his action, and it would take numerous or multiple or various court appearances, because he wouldn't be able to live with himself if he didn't do anything and something actually happened to one of the people on the train. Shout out to you, bro. Shout out to you. That's all I must say. I ain't got nothing else to say. Shout out to you. Okay, so KJP, Karine Jean-Pierre, all right, so KJP, Karine Jean-Pierre had something to say. Okay. Karine Jean-Pierre, you know, she always has something to say. This is concerning of course, the President of the United States, Biden, and some update around the White House. Let's listen.
Cuts for Social Security tax.
Foggy day, foggy day. So this afternoon, President Biden delivered a major address on his economic legacy. After decades of trickle-down economics, President Biden has written a new playbook that's growing the economy from the middle out and the bottom up. His administration has delivered the strongest recovery in the world and laid a strong foundation for years to come by investing in America, empowering workers and unions, lowering costs, and supporting small businesses. Over the last 4 years, we have made remarkable progress, and the results speak for themselves. Over 60 million jobs created, the lowest average unemployment rate of any administration in 50 years, inflation down faster than almost any other advanced economy, and incomes up almost $4,000. The list goes on. As you heard the president say, we face an inflection point. Do we continue to grow the economy from the middle out and bottom up, or do we backslide to trickle-down economics? With that, I will turn it over to Jared Bernstein, chair of the Council of Economic Advisors, to further discuss the economic progress that we have made. Jared?
Thank you. Great to be here with you again. I want to thank my team, as always, for helping me to prepare to speak to you today. The president, as you just heard, gave a legacy speech today wherein he spoke about the strong economy that his administration is leaving to the incoming team and how we got here given what we faced when we took office. He then lays out a set of benchmarks, which I will go through with you in a minute, against which the incoming administration's economic stewardship should be judged. The speech makes clear that while the pandemic was the acute source of economic stress 4 years ago, the damage done by decades of Republican fealty to trickle-down economic policy was a long-term underlying source of economic pain for millions of Americans. The speech goes through the policy implications of that agenda, offshoring jobs with no concern for workers in their communities, anti-unionism, and disinvesting in American infrastructure, workers, industries, and contrasts that with the Biden-Harris agenda of middle-out, bottom-up growth, which implies a very different agenda, investing in workers in key industries of future growth and productivity, union power, full employment labor markets, fair taxation, and taking on corporations and lobbies like Big Pharma on behalf of the American middle class. The timing is not accidental. As Karine said, a quote from the speech, with the outcome of this election, we face an inflection point. Do we continue to grow from middle out and bottom up by investing in all of America and in all of Americans, supporting unions and working families, or do we backslide to an economic theory that benefited those at the top while working people in the middle class struggled for a fair share of the growth. The president, as his speech, at the end of his speech, the president ticked through a set of benchmarks, indicators
Michelle,
by
I promise
which
you, I thought we did.
The conditions of the current economy that the incoming team has inherited can be assessed and judged. 16 million jobs with a manufacturing and a construction boom. In 4 years, we'll know if that job growth and booms will continue or not. Historic lows in unemployment, record new businesses, significantly closing the racial wealth gap, more people covered by health insurance than any time in history. Our tax code is fairer. We've gone after concentrated corporate power, and in 4 years we'll know if this power goes back to big corporations or not. Let me end my introductory comments today with a little bit of a reflection on the economics, speaking as the chair of the CEA, of the economic theory behind what the president talked about in his speech today. I should say the economic theory and the economic outcomes is as far from just a theoretical or an academic exercise. The president talked about achieving a soft landing, and this is the idea of considerably lower inflation without giving up much on the economy's demand side. That is, lower inflation without higher employment. As you know, many economists told us we couldn't get there. We'd have to have a recession to have as much disinflation as we've seen. In fact, that did not occur. And one of the reasons it didn't is because the job market, I heard the president mention full employment a couple of times in his speech today. The job market has stayed uniquely strong for uniquely long. And that's given workers bargaining clout along with his union agenda. And so as prices have come down, as inflation, I should say, as inflation has come down and wages have gone up, we've had real wage gains now for about a year and a half on a yearly basis. Last seen 1.5% real year over year. That's real. That's a considerable pace of real wage gains. This helps support strong consumer spending, and that's been a core factor keeping this economy moving forward above trend growth rates and leading to a situation that you heard the president talk about today where the U.S. economy really is the envy of the world. And I say that as someone who recently came back from Europe, where I was frequently accosted by people who wanted to just talk about how we've achieved the innovation, the productivity, the persistent full employment that we have. That's the consumer side of the story, the consumer spending side of the story. It's 70% of our nominal GDP, so it's extremely important to keep the economy moving forward. But I often think of consumption as today's story and investment as tomorrow's story. I think what the president talked about today, that was so important and so compelling, especially given the fact that many of these benefits are going to unfold 2, 4, 5, 10 years from now if the incoming folks nurture the seeds we've planted versus take them out. This investment agenda has the potential and is already transforming economic growth, production, innovation, building up new domestic sectors in this economy in the area of clean energy, battery production, chips, and that kind of investment agenda, that speaks to future growth rates. That speaks to future opportunities. That speaks to future productivity growth. Now, we've already, as the president said in his speech today, there's been $1 trillion of private investment that has flooded into those sectors, into clean energy, into semiconductors, into providing infrastructure for this country. All of that, again, is a complement to the consumer spending side of the agenda, the soft landing agenda that sets us up for a future based on the kinds of investments the president talked about today. With that, we'll turn to your questions.
Good, Josh. Good to see you, Jared. Thanks for doing this and subjecting yourself to all of us. One of the benchmarks that President Biden didn't mention in his speech was the U.S. budget deficit, which is closing out the fiscal year last year like above 6% of GDP. How sustainable is that as an inheritance of the incoming administration?
The president spoke about this a bit in the speech in the context of doubling down on the TCJA tax cuts, of course, most of which expire at the end of next year. And he talked about I think he mentioned $5 trillion in deficit-financed tax cuts if Republicans fail to offset that. I think that stands in stark contrast to the budgets that we've passed that have the most recent one with $3 trillion of deficit reduction. So the first point is that if you look at the fiscal outlook that we've tried to craft in our budgets, now obviously we're not able to get those through Congress, but we certainly, that's what we've been fighting for. They're characterized by significant deficit reduction and a great deal more fairness in the tax code, which is something he talked about today. So I think he correctly took a stance that the full extension of the Trump tax cuts would be both significantly damaging our fiscal outlook and even worse, creating more unfairness in the tax code and increasing after-tax inequality. In terms of whether 6% deficits are sustainable, I think that when what you really want to see, I think it's hard and probably not that advisable to say this number is okay and that number isn't. Once you get to this level of debt to GDP, you're in trouble. Once you go over it, the markets don't really work that way. Given the extent of the debt that we face so far, we still have very successful auctions to explain what I'm talking about. But I do think that what you want to see is when you get to a full employment economy with above trend growth, you'd like to see that number coming down. So I think it's much more of a delta story. You'd like to see that number coming down, and one of the reasons you don't is because decades of trickle-down economics and Republican tax cuts have severed the linkage between strong economic growth and revenue flows to the Treasury. We've tried to correct that in our budgets, but the politics have blocked us from getting it there.
But basically, you believe the current situation is not sustainable based off your budget proposals.
I think that when you get
the Biden administration, they just come out here, spill a lot of probably BS, and then they go back, and we just wait for the next time they come up here. How is this? How did we go through this for the last 4 years? Somebody put in the chat. How did we do this for the last 4 years? Hey.
Get to an economy. I think that when you're an economy like ours, no, I wouldn't say it that way. I would say when you're an economy like ours with all the kinds of indicators the president discussed today, full employment, above trend GDP growth, historically low unemployment, yes, your budget deficit should be going down because the revenues that come into your coffers are outpacing your outlays. And that's the budgets that we've written. That's something we've tried to embed in our budgets. And we haven't been able to get them passed. What's worrisome, and the President talked about this today, is that the incoming administration is making sounds of going in the other direction, which I would consider fiscally reckless.
Yeah, Jared, it's been a little while since I've seen you, so I want to ask you a question about the speech and the context for it. I mean, so many voters cited inflation and just their pessimism about the economy in exit interviews as we were watching the election. So what is the purpose of sort of going out and saying, well, we did all this right against that backdrop? It's kind of like water under the bridge, right? Sort of your account of the economic progress is against the backdrop of people having said, no, that's not what we want to do.
Well, as I tried to express in my topper here, in my introductory remarks, the purpose was really twofold. One was to lay out a set of benchmarks. I mean, I think the president quoted Reagan in the speech saying sometimes facts can be stubborn things, but they are facts. So lay out a set of facts that are unequivocally correct about above trend growth, trending at 3% on real GDP, lowest average unemployment in 50 years, 16 million jobs, and so on, real gains in average income of $4,000 since we got here. Lay down a set of facts, benchmark 20 million new businesses, small businesses created. Lay down a set of benchmarks against which the progress of the incoming administration should be judged. I mean, this is the incoming team, in no small part, ran hard against this economy, and so it's entirely possible that in some short amount of time that they start making very different sounds about how they own these great results. And we wanted to be sure that we set down the benchmarks that the Biden economic agenda delivered. Secondly, how did we get there? So those are the benchmarks, but how did we get there? We certainly didn't get there with trickle-down economics. We got there with the new playbook that Karine and I referenced, and that's a playbook that invests in American workers. It invests in American bargaining power. It believes in union strength. It believes in fair competition. It believes in fair taxation and a more reasonable fiscal outlook. It believes in pushing back on concentrated corporate power. All of those parts of the Biden economic agenda got us to where we are in terms of the positive indicators that we had in this, that we outlined today. Now, at the same time, nobody is denying the inflation that you asked about, and in fact, the president hit that head on in two ways. One, first, he talked about our efforts to get inflation down. So remember, in mid-June, you saw inflation peak, and after that, it turned around and came down pretty quickly to now it's within target. It's close to the Federal Reserve's target rate, and that's why you see them cutting rates. And so how did we get there? Well, we did a great deal of work on trying to unsnarl supply chains. The president talked about his release of oil from the strategic reserves, and of course, a full set of cost-cutting measures going after junk fees, healthcare, and so on. The incoming administration has talked about repealing measures that would directly raise costs, not to mention adding a set of sweeping tariffs that would act like a national sales tax, pushing the wrong way on inflation. So it seems to us entirely important to reference all of those developments in this case.
Can I just follow up? So, given that there's this lag in the economy, like something happens and then there's a lag when you see the effect. How long will it be before, say, Trump's tariffs sort of make themselves felt? Because I think the White House itself looked at the possibility of repealing or removing the U.S.-China tariffs to sort of address inflation and realized there would be only a very modest impact. So
okay, so first of all,
what's your
sure, I can
prediction
give
for
you
the
some
lag,
economics on that and the lag structure. First of all, it's really important in this conversation to distinguish between targeted tariffs that are designed to protect American industry and American taxpayers' investment against unfair overcapacity trade practices of the type that China has engaged in, with sweeping tariffs of multi-digit % tariffs on everything coming in from Europe and China. Totally different worlds. The first protects American producers. The second hurts American consumers. How quickly does that happen? Quite quickly.
Okay, here we go.
So let's talk about how a tariff works. And again, I think we've gotten some misguided explanations in this regard from the other side. The other country doesn't, the exporting country doesn't pay the tariff. Technically, the tariff is paid by the importing company. It's paid upon customs receipt by the importer. Now, that business then typically pushes that tax or tariff forward to their consumers. And that's why studies have shown that fairly quickly, I don't want to cite a number, but I think it's months versus, I don't want to cite a time period, but I think it's more months than quarters. So pretty quickly, I think we've seen in the past. Oh, it's a good example is the washing machine tariffs. That they hit very quickly. I think it was a matter of weeks or months before we saw the price effects on washing machines and on dryers, American dryers, even though they weren't tariffed. So the price effects work pretty quickly.
Go ahead, MJ.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Hi, MJ.
Hi, nice to see you. Over the last year or so, I think we've all seen you field a lot of questions about this disconnect between what you describe as a strong economy versus the people's generally pessimistic economic outlook. I just wondered, and it's related to the last question, what would you say is the reason that there wasn't enough of an improvement in people's economic outlook by Election Day? I assume you've had some time to reflect on the results of the election.
It seems clear, if you look not just at our election, but at elections and approval ratings across the globe, that not just inflation, because by the time the election came along, inflation was back down within distance of 2%. So it was back down close to the Fed's target. So not inflation, but the price level, the cumulative impact of inflation. So the fact that people could still remember what things used to cost, that was a force that really whacked incumbents in every I think virtually every election we've seen across the globe. So that was a very powerful force. Now look, from our perspective, we needed to do two things. We needed to get inflation down, because you'll never get people will never be able to acclimate to the higher price level unless inflation comes back down to around 2%. And that was behind our work on unsnarling supply chains, which became very important in this space. One of the graphics that I like to tout from our CEA team is if you look at supply chain measures of stress, which go way up and way down in the pandemic and post-pandemic, and you plot them against commodities goods inflation, they track each other very closely with a bit of a lag. And so getting inflation back down to target was very much an important part of agenda. But that just means prices are rising more slowly. It doesn't mean they're falling. And in fact, to have a broad decline in the price level, you would need a deep recession that nobody wants. So what you need to happen is for incomes to catch up. Now, those dynamics were happening. They were occurring. And I've spoken about this from the podium before. I theorized, probably a couple of years ago, and one of my colleagues and I are trying to write an academic paper about this. I theorized a couple of years ago that if inflation came down and people had enough time to acclimate to the new price level, an acclimation that would be very much aided, and in fact was essentially had to be aided by rising real wages or incomes. Eventually, they'd start to get acclimated and to feel better. And what's the word I want? Sort of a trivial example of that is. When I started driving, gas was 60 cents a gallon. But I don't walk around annoyed that gas isn't 60 cents a gallon, because while prices have gone up, incomes have gone up more. That's where we are. Inflation is back down. The price level remains too high from the perspective of consumers and voters. And that's partly, a big part of the answer to your question. I sense you want to say something else.
This long memory that people have on price levels. I mean, do you feel like the president's economic team, the president himself, could have done anything differently over the last few years to better address that, better, sort of meet people where they are? I mean, you've known that is where people's heads have been at for a while.
The question of could you have done something different and better, I always feel like, sure, you could always, nobody's perfect, and you can always improve on what you did. But on the issues I'm talking to you about, we were one of the first folks to be talking about this, to be understanding the difference between inflation and price levels from people's perspective. I mean, I don't know if you remember, but I brought this to our senior staff one day. I brought this, I think it might have been the only time I did this. I brought a handout to our senior staff and said, let me talk to you about the difference between inflation and the price level and how people feel about that. And, economics doesn't think that much about the price level. It thinks a lot about inflation. And, not at all a critique of the mandate of the Fed. That's the congressional mandate and the one they follow. But it's full employment and stable inflation. So, and you'll hear Chair Powell talk about that I recognize the price level is a stress to people, but my job is to get inflation down. So it's something we've been on for a long time.
Action.
And it's behind the cost-cutting work that we tried to do here.
Action.
We cut costs in healthcare. The president talked about junk fees. You saw the energy results from the Spro release and so on. We tried to get a lot more competition going in the grocery sector, where there's definitely not enough competition.
Billy.
Pretty high markups and profit
World
levels
Salad
that we
Guru
talked about and used the bully pulpit to convey our concern about. But, we live in a capitalist economy, and so prices are generally determined by private markets. But where we could, and healthcare is a great example, because the government is in 9% of the healthcare market. So healthcare is about 18% of GDP, about half of that is the government. So there's an area where we could and did make a huge difference. Insulin, capping prescription drugs, which kicks in, by the way, in a couple of weeks, the $2,000 cap on prescription drugs. We're very proud of that agenda. Could we have done more or talked about it differently? I think we did what we could.
Get in.
Hey, Jared. Good to see you. One of the things the president mentioned today at Brookings was he hit a note of regret about not signing the COVID checks the way that Donald Trump did. And I just was wondering if that's something you ever talked about, or following up on MJ's question about what could have been done differently. Was that a debate that happened at all? Would you have recommended anything to the president in that regard?
It's not something I recall talking or debating about. I mean, I will say two things about that. One is, just to bring it back to the economic space in which I'm more comfortable, certainly those checks were instrumental in what I described earlier, which is getting businesses and consumers to the other side of the crisis. You know, we gave people more buying power than they had at a time, and there's been a lot of second guessing on this, so I'd love to set the record kind of straight. In January of 2021, it was peak COVID deaths, okay? The unemployment rate was stuck at 6.7%, and I just looked back the other day. The last jobs report when we came in was a negative. It has been revised. It's been revised differently. I think it's actually been revised to be a bigger negative, but it was a negative. In other words, we'd lost, I think, 140,000 jobs according to the print. That was in December of 20. So this was a very challenging economy. You know, people who say it was fine and you shouldn't have done anything are forgetting. You know, that's amnesia. So we're very proud of the fact that this income got into people's hands quickly. Who was asking about the lag a second ago? Boy, there's a really tight lag there. You know, this money got out quickly. It got into the economy quickly, and it very quickly set up an economic expansion that is today the envy of the world. The president isn't hyperbolic when he says that, and I say that having recently come back from Europe. That set up that full employment expansion that we've enjoyed since then. And two, so I said there'd be 2 points. Two, he was kidding.
Oh, wait, he was kidding about signing the checks.
he was kidding.
Oh, good, Daniel.
Thanks, Joe. I just wondered if you have had the chance yet to speak to your successor in the Trump administration, and if you've got any advice for him.
I have not. I don't know who will be sitting in my chair yet, so I haven't spoken to that person. And then advice? Yeah. That's a good question, one I haven't thought of. I would say read the president's speech today. Really, I'm not being facetious. The president's speech today is the best advice I could give to any member of the incoming economic team. Because what it says is we have planted some very important seeds in growing domestic industry, which I think both the outgoing and the incoming administration share the strong desire to see American industry stand up independently, more resilient supply chains. Yes, we still believe in very robust trade flows, so obviously part of my advice would be not to do sweeping tariffs. Certainly small tariffs, targeted tariffs that protect against unfair dumping, sure. But it would be to nurture, I guess this may not be the most mellifluous advice that they want to hear, but nurture the seeds that we've planted. This is not a blue state thing or a red state thing. And in fact, the president was very clear on this today. Most of the investments under the IRA, under CHIPS, even under infrastructure, are going to red states, not blue states. Most of them are going to people with relatively lower incomes or lower levels of education. So very much a working class issue. So nurture the seeds, don't stomp on them.
Is there anything that you have seen or heard from the incoming administration's economic plans that you like? Or that could be in line with what you have?
I've heard certainly commentary about getting on a more fiscally sustainable path. So thinking about Josh's question a moment ago. What I can't put together is how you get there from here. Well, not from here, how you get there from what I believe to be their fiscal agenda. And in fact, there have been many scorekeepers across town who have been scoring the cost of not just extending fully the TCJA tax cuts, but going further. Tax cuts for overtime, tax cuts for Social Security, tax cuts for tips. And so if you tout that all up by one study, there was an upper bound of north of 10 trillion in terms of adding to the deficit and the debt. So I like some of the sound I'm hearing about getting on a more sustainable fiscal path, but then I'm hearing a policy agenda that goes the wrong way on that.
Just to follow up, you said that most of these projects are in red states. Certainly your administration didn't get a whole lot of political benefit from that, but I'm wondering, why is that? Is it because it's easier, there's less red tape, there's less regulations in red states, you can get projects up and going faster than in blue states?
It's not so much that. It's more that that these projects were targeted to communities that had been historically left behind. This president believes, and I think he probably shares this belief with, the incoming president to some extent. This president believes that while there are absolutely positive attributes to globalization, the idea that globalization didn't leave behind American communities and didn't hurt anybody and uplifted everybody is clearly wrong. And even bereft. I mean, to blithely say, here's another trade deal, everybody's going to love it and be fine, is just denying the impact of the China shock and the hollowing out that happened to the very communities we're talking about. So these plans were designed in part to disproportionately send their investments to communities that had been hollowed out and left behind. Energy communities, communities where anchor factories were lost, and that's behind where those investments have flowed.
But a lot of battleground states were deindustrialized and left behind.
Well,
put projects in there. Why red states is what I'm asking.
No, go to investment.gov and you'll see that there are lots of projects there too. So it's not that 90% were in red and 10 were in blue. I don't know what the division is, but I think it's probably fairly close. It's that a lot more were, when the president talked about this today, he framed it as like, this may not, some may look at this and say, this is not my greatest political move. That's not where he's coming from. When he said, I'm president for all Americans, he meant it and he over-delivered.
Yeah. Hey, Jared, thanks for doing this. I have a question sort of about legacy. Biden billed the speech this afternoon as about an economic playbook, something that is successful and should be replicated. But it didn't have a lot of electoral success, and it didn't, in the minds of voters, as other folks have said, they don't see it as a success for them. I just wonder what gives you or what gives the president confidence that this should be or would be replicated.
So here you have to, it's a totally fair question. Here you really have to get under the hood, and I've done this. If you ask people what they think about paying $35 for insulin versus $400 a month, it's not going to surprise you that polls somewhere between 80 and 150%. I'm making the second number up, but it polls north of 80%. If you ask people how they feel about an infrastructure project that restored a bridge in their area, again, you'll get approval numbers in the high 70s and high 80s. If you ask people, and now I'm talking about Democrats and Republicans, how you feel about this new computer fab that's going, microprocessor chip fab that's going up in your town, in your area, that's going to provide thousands of jobs building these fabs, which are 3 football fields long, and lots of jobs staffing them, jobs that the president today said can pay up to $100,000 for a non-college educated person. Not only are they going to say, yes, we like that, but a number of Republicans, I think a double-digit number of Republicans, have sent notes to the incoming administration saying, don't repeal that stuff. So part one, get under the hood and look at how people feel about many of the actions that the president talked about today. Part two, which I'm not denying the premise of your question at all, it gets back to inflation. And I probably haven't said enough about that today. I talked to MJ and others about the difference between the price level and how, if you remember what things cost, that really sticks in the craw of many in the electorate, not just here, but globally. But this inflation was a global inflation, so let's not forget that. In fact, cumulatively, we have good scatter plots on this in our forthcoming economic report of the president. This inflation cumulatively was about the same in the U.S. as it was in Europe and G7 countries. Where we stand out from the pack is not in cumulative inflation, it's in growth, it's in productivity, it's in innovation, it's in job creation. And so that's an important part of the puzzle too.
I guess they're wrapping it up.
Thank you for being here, Jared. I just want to ask you, a lot of this has been sort of reactive to the new administration that's coming in. The president-elect posted in the course of the last hours we've been gathering that any company or person investing $1 billion or more into the country will receive fully expedited approvals and permits, including environmental approvals. Is there any consequence to something like that? Maybe this is a question that's more about the environment more broadly, but economically, is there any reason why this should be something that's reconsidered against tough scrutiny?
I would hesitate to respond to a tweet from the incoming president just because I'd like to know more about what he's talking about and whether that's something they're actually planning or something.
Fair, that's all we know about what he's talking about,
right.
But that's fair.
So I probably wouldn't say much about that. I will say the following that speaks to that a little bit. I keep flacking our forthcoming book. So in the economic report of the president, out in a few weeks, one of the chapters in that, it's not like we make any money. It's just point and click. So it's this is just intellectual sharing. We've had tremendous foreign direct investment, and yes, we've definitely tried to make clean the brush out. So there's to help diminish the burden from permitting and things like that. And there's more to do in that space. And I think there are members of Congress. That is, I believe, a bipartisan issue that we could be working on. So if the Trump team is serious about trying to clear some of that brush, sure. But one thing I hear too often from him and them is, without regard for any impacts of some of the guardrails that are there for a reason. So that's why you shouldn't really just respond to a tweet. You need to look at what's the impact of taking down guardrails that are embedded in that tweet, but not realized, not recognized. But without, even with the current situation being as it is, we've had tremendous inflows of foreign direct investment. I mean, TSMC, as you well know, I suspect, is building plants and already testing chips, and I think quite successfully, in their fabrication plants in Arizona, I believe. And of course, across the country, we've seen these investments play out. And when I think about the pictures in this chapter, the foreign direct investment charts, they spike up like that. We've certainly seen historical investments in manufacturing facilities in this country. We recently hit a peak in the contribution of manufacturing facilities in this country. Its contribution to GDP was recently the highest it's been since the early 1980s. So that's not just domestic investment, that's global investment. We're very proud of it.
All right. Go ahead, Jared. Last question.
Thank you. So, I guess more broadly, the audience for the address today, was it, like you said, just for the American people to know sort of what you were and kind of how to judge the next 4 years, or is this kind of a call to action for members of Congress, for Democrats to think before maybe they go along with some of these policies legislatively?
I think that in some ways, sure, the latter of what you said, in the sense that the president was very clearly outlining two very alternative economic playbooks, and he was very critical of the former, the trickle-down model, and very much underscoring the progress that we've made with the Invest in America, Invest in Workers, invest in unions, invest in tax fairness, invest in domestic industries in this country. That's the agenda that he obviously argued today is far superior to growing the economy in a lasting way, to trickle-down tax cuts for rich people, which, as I said earlier, simply worsen the fiscal outlook and enrich their beneficiaries. What I would say in terms of, I don't know that there was some sort of, no hidden message to politicians in there, but I've tried to say today, one, I think, useful way of looking at what he talked about today is this investment agenda. Strong consumer spending at 70% of our economy, that's important, but investment, is another 10, 15%, and that's important too. Consumer spending helped us get to where we are, helped us, strong consumers on the backs of a strong labor market, easing inflation, strong real wage and income gains, that's helped get us to where we are. And in fact, a healthy American consumer, off the backs of a strong full employment job market, will always propel this economy forward, because consumer spending is 70% of our GDP. In Europe, it's 55%. In China, it's 40%. So that's a natural place for us to have gone. But for investing in the future, you got to plant seeds. So the message to anyone, D, R, whomever, from the speech today, is nurture those seeds. Take those seeds that we've planted, and by the way, these are not sprouts in the ground. I mean, these are seeds that have $1 trillion of private capital backing them. So they're sprouting. I think I better put this tortured metaphor aside pretty soon. But you know, those sprouts need to be nurtured, and I don't care if you have a D or an R next to your name. You need to roll up your sleeves and start nurturing.
Nurturing. All right. Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. We'll be nurturing.
I'll bet you
those
will.
Seeds. All good? All right. Thank you so much, Jared. Appreciate it.
We'll take signed copies.
That's right. All right, just have two more things to share with all of you at the top, and then we'll continue. So today, following the G7's June agreement and the President's October commitment, the United States has dispersed $20 billion to a new World Bank fund that will provide economic support for Ukraine. The U.S. and G7 loans will be paid back by the interest earned from Russia's immobilized sovereign assets, increasingly putting the cost of the war on Russia, not on U.S. taxpayers. After Russia's brutal invasion of Ukraine, the G7 made a commitment that Russian sovereign assets in our jurisdictions will remain immobilized until Russia ends its aggression and pays for the damages it has caused Ukraine. The United States and G7 are now making good on that commitment. Together, we will leverage income earned from frozen Russian sovereign assets to provide a total of $50 billion of extraordinary revenue acceleration ERA loans to Ukraine. This will lend vital support to the people of Ukraine as they defend their country, and it also makes clear aggressors and tyrants will be responsible for the damage they cause. And finally, tomorrow, the President and the First Lady will host the first ever White House Conference on Women's Health Research. The conference will bring together business philanthropic leaders, academic researchers, advocates, investors, and administration officials to discuss the President and First Lady's historic leadership to advance women's health research. President Biden and First Lady Jill Biden created the White House Initiative on Women's Health Research to fundamentally change how our nation approaches and funds women's health research. The reality is, despite making up more than half the population, women have historically been understudied and underrepresented in health research. To help close these gaps, President Biden called on Congress to make a transformative investment of $12 billion in new funding for women's health research in his 2024 State of the Union. He also signed an executive order to advance women's health research and innovative directing, the most comprehensive set of executive actions ever taken to expand and improve women's research on women's health. Since its launch in November of 2023, we're proud that the initiative has galvanized nearly $1 billion in funding to close gaps in research. And tomorrow you will hear directly from the President, you'll hear directly from the First Lady, who are going to discuss this progress and the work that still remains. And stay tuned for more. With that, Josh, as always, it's good to see you.
Good to see you. Given the killing of the United Healthcare executive, what would you say to Americans who might sympathize with Luigi Mangioni's purported manifesto indicating that insurance companies ultimately care more about their profits than the health of their customers?
So let me
is
just...
that
I'm sorry.
premise like...
Yeah.
Is that premise accurate in any way?
So let me just say at the top, offer up certainly our condolences to the victims and his loved ones. We are certainly tracking the latest regarding this deadly shooting. As you all know, local enforcement is leading the investigation, and the FBI certainly is supporting. So we will know more as they complete their work, and we're going to give them the space to do just that. And we are grateful to law enforcement for apprehending the suspect, and we stand ready to provide further support if needed. And so while we're certainly not going to comment on the investigation, we condemn violence in the strongest term. And so I'm just going to be really careful here and not comment on this case as we do normally. It's not, it's our usual step forward as we talk about these types of situations. Obviously, this is horrific. Violence to combat any sort of corporate greed is unacceptable, and so that is as far as I'm going to go. I'm going to let the investigation move forward, and I'm not going to speak to any manifestos or anything that is coming out to this.
Let me follow. This administration has made price gouging a priority. It's talked about junk fees. The president just outlined part of this in his economic speech. Are Americans treated fairly by their insurance companies?
Look, I think what I want to be careful, because this is indeed connected to this case, connected to this ongoing investigation. I do want to be mindful in what I say from here, and I'm going to let this open investigation continue and let the law enforcement do their job. I think it's important that we give them the space to do that, and I don't want to speak to what has been said by this particular individual. Obviously, we are going to continue to condemn any form of violence that is unacceptable, and so that is as far as I can go from here, given that this is an ongoing investigation, and speaking to it would not be the right thing to do right now from this podium. Karen.
A couple questions about drones. There have been repeated drone sightings in the Northeast, especially in New Jersey. These are not small drones, some of them pretty large. They're flying at low altitudes, they're flying in flocks. Has the president been briefed on this situation?
So we are certainly aware, the president is aware. So we're closely tracking the activity and coordinating closely with relevant agency, including DHS and FBI, to continue to investigate these incidents. Don't have anything beyond that to share. Obviously, this is something that DHS and FBI are tracking very, very closely, and so I would have to refer you to them directly, but aware. Keeping an eye out and looking into the incidents that you just mentioned.
Couple still though, but has the federal government ruled out that these are controlled by foreign entities?
Yeah.
And do you know if they're conducting surveillance over these
So
areas?
I cannot make any kind of predictions or comments about that specifically from here. This is something that DHS is looking at and FBI, so I would have to refer you to them. I don't have anything beyond that. We're tracking this very closely. Obviously, we're all aware of the incidents that have been reported. I'm not going to go into what they could be or could not be from here. That is something that obviously is being looked at as those respective agencies that I mentioned.
When was the president briefed on this?
I don't have a timeline, but he certainly has been made aware of this.
And the New Jersey governor said, it's frustrating that there aren't answers about where these are coming from, that people are very concerned about this. What's the White House message to the people up there who are frustrated that there isn't any information right now?
And obviously, we hear them and we understand that. We are closely tracking this. We are monitoring the incidents that have been put forward and certainly made public. And we have two agencies that I've already mentioned that are looking into this, working closely with folks on the ground, trying to get to the bottom of it. I don't have anything more to share beyond that. Go ahead, Andrea. I was trying to see who else I could call, because I know I've called on you already.
So I just wanted to follow up on your comment, or your desire to not comment necessarily on the United Healthcare thing, but you did use the words corporate greed. So
You mean just in general in this administration?
Well, I mean, in terms of, you talked about the horrific response. Just read it back. Obviously, this is a horrific response.
Oh, you mean in my answer?
This is horrific violence. To combat any sort of corporate greed is unacceptable.
Yeah.
So, I mean, are you saying that you buy the argument that this violence was specifically targeted at some sort of corporate greed by United Healthcare?
What I'm saying is that anything, right? Any type of violence on whatever it is, right? Whether it's political violence or any kind of violence, we are going to continue to say it is unacceptable, and we're going to condemn any form of violence. And that's what I was bringing it more so in a broader spectrum of what we have been pretty consistent in saying at this podium in this administration, certainly this president as well. Any form of violence, whether what it is, we are going to certainly condemn it.
And then just to switch gears, the president today during his remarks at Brookings talked about leaving office but not going away and continuing to work on polarization and division issues. Do you have anything to share with us in terms of the president's plans He's cut short his, what will he be doing over the holidays? Can you just sort of give us a little readout on what he's planning and whether, there would be a foundation or how he envisions working on
So you're talking about like,
polarization?
what his world will look like post his presidency. Look, I'm going to let the president speak to that. Obviously, he gave you a little bit of a window of his thinking of what he sees his world post January 20th. I don't want to get ahead of him. This is someone, if you think about it, right, and more broadly, he has had a 52-year career in public service. So he is a public servant to his core and always believes in doing everything that he can to make Americans' lives better, and you saw him do that in the last almost 4 years, and he's going to continue certainly doing that in the next 41 days, the last 41 days of his administration, and so that is inherently who he is. When he talks about continuing to do the work that he truly believes in, obviously he talked about polarization. This is something that he's talked about for some time, and this is also a president, whether he was president, vice president, or senator, and you know this if you followed his career very closely. He has found ways to reach across the aisles to get things done on behalf of the American people, and so I'm sure that is something that he wants to continue to speak to, but I don't have anything to share. I'm going to let him certainly lay that out when he feels is the right time to do so.
And just really quickly, I know that Kirby spoke with us earlier, but the question that I have is on Syria, and it looks like the government there now is sort of, or the direction seems to be to embrace an open market economy. Can you say anything more about further contacts that you've had with the opposition forces there in Syria, and what your sort of understanding is about the direction that government will take?
So look, what I will say is, and what you've heard from many of my NSC colleagues over the past couple of days, and certainly from the president on Sunday when he spoke to the developments in Syria on Sunday when he gave remarks in the Roosevelt Room. So what we can say and what I can say is that we are in contact with all the Syrian groups, including through with including intermediaries, as we work to do whatever we can to support the Syrian people through a transition, and so that's what I can speak to. You heard the president say that various leaders of the rebel groups, including HTS, are saying what we view to be the right things publicly, obviously, but what is important is what they're saying closely matches what they're saying. Their actions closely match their words, and that's what needs to be seen. But I'm not going to go beyond that at this time. But certainly we are in touch with Syrian groups. MJ.
Thanks, Corinne. Just quickly following up on the murder of Brian Thompson, can you give us any sense of how the president himself has been processing those headlines? I think even just setting aside the debate that it has prompted about the healthcare industry, I think just the image itself has been so shocking to a lot of people.
Yeah, and I'm going to be honest, I haven't had a deep dive conversation with the president about this. Obviously, I know that he has been updated. Certainly have talked to him about what has been reported, and he's been updated by other senior members of his team. So haven't gone into the images or anything like that specifically. But what I can say, and what we've been pretty consistent, and I just mentioned this to one of your colleagues, is denouncing violence and how horrific this incident is. And it is important to certainly continue to say it's unacceptable, continue to say that we condemn it, and we are trying to be really mindful because this is an ongoing legal matter, and so what we say at this podium, as you know, goes far and wide and has impact, so we're trying to be super careful from here, but the thing that I can say is condemn the violence that we saw certainly last couple of days ago on this issue.
And just separately, can you confirm that the president still opposes the death penalty?
No, his view has not changed on that.
Given that his view on that hasn't changed, can you talk to us a little bit about, I know you're not wanting to share anything that you're not prepared to share yet, but given that has been his stance, Is he currently considering the possibility of the commutation of inmates that are currently on death row?
Again, I'm not going to go ahead of the president's thinking. Certainly, we will have more to announce on pardons and commutations, as I've said many times before. But there's a process. He's reviewing it. He's thinking through it. I'm just not going to get into any specifics from here at this time. When he's ready to make announcements, we'll certainly, obviously, share that with all of you.
Quickly, you mentioned the president can speak for himself on a lot of these issues. Will he give a year-end press conference?
I don't have anything to share. Obviously, the president is going to wants to continue to engage with all of you. I don't have anything to share on that.
The former Israeli defense minister was here today. Any updates on where the hostage negotiations stand?
I don't have anything to update you on that, as you know, and we've been pretty consistent about this and pretty forthright on saying how we are certainly continue to be committed and working 24/7 to get the hostages home. This is a priority for this president, and he wants to do everything and continue to do everything that we can to do that. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan is going to be traveling to Israel this week to meet with Israeli officials as part of our close consultations on a range of important issues, including our efforts to reach a hostage release and ceasefire deal in Gaza, and the latest development in Syria, and for discussions about Lebanon and Iran. So that is happening. Jake will be going to the region, and as you probably already know, he's going to be meeting with the families of hostages in Gaza, and so they're going to be meeting this afternoon if they haven't already. And this is something that, as you know, he has spoken to this before. Jake Sullivan regularly meets with the families of these hostages, and he has done that multiple times throughout this past year, and so that is something that he's going to be doing today, and so. We have been really clear. This president has been really focused on his commitment on bringing Americans who have been wrongfully detained, held hostage. I think we have brought home over 75 Americans who are unjustly detained around the world, and so that commitment continues, and so that is certainly what we're going to work on 24/7 from here.
And to that note, the president said that he believes that Austin Tice, American journalist held in Syria, is alive. What exactly is that based off of, and has there been any movement in terms of securing his release?
So let me just say at the top that is a priority. You heard that from the president when he took, I think, he made a statement and certainly took a question about this on Sunday. Finding Austin Tice is a top priority of this administration. The FBI and State Department have offered up to $11 million in reward to anyone who can provide information. We do not know where he is located. We do not know. But we continue to hope that he is alive. And I think that's what you hear from this president, that he is hopeful that he is still alive, and we're talking certainly
no
with the Turks and others to find him and to bring him home, and that is our commitment from this president. I will say more broadly to answer the question, there is no indication that he's not alive. But there's also no indication about his location or his condition. So again, we are hopeful. We are hopeful that he is, and we're going to continue to do the work to bring him home.
Sorry, just to follow up. So when the president says he believes he is alive, are you saying he's really saying that he's hopeful he's alive?
Well, there's no indication he's not alive. There isn't. But at the same time, we do not know his location, and we do not know his condition. That is just, sadly, the realities that we're in. You heard what I just laid out about what the FBI and the State Department have done, offered up $11 million in rewards to anyone who can provide more information. I think that shows our commitment to bringing him home. And that's what you're going to continue to see from this president. Again, I talked about how he has, in his administration, has brought home more than 75 Americans who have been wrongfully detained. And so I think you can see this president and hear this president's commitment to doing that, getting Austin Tice home to his family. Okay, Peter.
Can you detail how recently or when most recently President Biden himself spoke to the Tice family, what the engagements with the family look right now, and then what, with some specificity, is being done to try to secure more information. Is there a hostage recovery effort that's taking place that's physically in Damascus on the ground? There are American troops there. What more can you tell us about that?
So I would have to check in. I don't have any update on a conversation when is the last time the president has a conversation.
None since the fall of Assad.
I just want to be super mindful.
Of
I just
course
haven't
she
had that
does.
conversation, so I don't have anything to share with you on the last time the president has spoken with Austin's family. As you know, Jake Sullivan, the National Security Advisor, spoke to his family just last week, so that has occurred. There's been engagement and from us with the family, so just want to make that clear. Look, I just laid out how the FBI and the State Department has offered up $11 million in rewards, right, to try and get more information. We do not know his location, and we do not know his condition. And so we are trying to do everything that we can to get that information. We are committed to bringing him home. And so that is what you heard from the president, certainly on Sunday when he was asked directly this question, or asked a question about Austin. And so that continues to be our commitment. So we are certainly working through the Turks and others to find him and bring him home. So that is the actions that we have been taking. And so I don't have anything else to share beyond that.
If you have anything more to share, I trust you'll tell us. Let me ask you, if I can, following up on a question that was asked to Jared that raised.
Yeah. Of course, KJP, total BS in the making. And we know all they do is talk, no actions, and lie. Because she was the one that said the president of the United States would not pardon his son. And of course, the president too said it. I have total belief in the DOJ and the jury of his peers. Well, the jury of his peers said, your boy gonna have to go to jail. But he said, hell no. He pardoned him. So we know most of the things they're talking about now is cap. Cap or nix. Cap on cap. Next one. Let's go.
You know, I like Danny Penny. I think a lot of people who watched Danny Penny and watched how stoic he was, and how in spite of whatever they threw at him, he yelled at him, and whatever.
Danny Penny, he ain't Danielle Penny no more. They're trying to make him, and the legend of Danny Penny.
In the courtroom, I watched him in the courtroom also. Nothing changed his demeanor. He was just someone who would sit there and let everything fall off his back.
Yeah, he's a superhero.
Today, what I saw was one of the most amazing human beings I have ever met. And I think America will fall in love with this man.
Nope.
He is not just a hero. He is the kind of guy that every mother, every husband, wants on the subway when their kid or their wife is on that train.
Oh,
he was
hell
compassionate.
no.
He was firm. He was someone who said it didn't matter what they threw at him, because he kept going back in his mind to the thanks of those people who were on the subway car. And you heard him say it himself. He could never forgive himself if he didn't get involved. He said it really was who he was. He's a very Zen guy. He doesn't want this attention. He doesn't want to be here. He doesn't want any of that.
For
I mean, this is
real?
the guy who was in a string symphony. I mean, he studied classical music.
Oh, wow.
He's not a thug.
Oh, really?
He's the guy who talked about how the Manhattan DA weaponized his military experience against him. And that's what he was talking about with the politics.
Really?
And I talked to him about the medical examiner who said one thing in the grand jury and then lied to make it look better at the trial. How did he feel about the fact that these people were coming in doing everything they could, not to mention the manslaughter where they dismiss it in order to send the jury back? He knew they wanted him. And he kept saying, I could never have changed it. I would not have done anything differently.
Oh.
And it reinforces my
That
confidence.
right there is the red flag for me. It's like he would never have changed it. And in his first interview, well, the first one wasn't an interview. It was just like a conversation he had with it wasn't even a conversation. It was like a talk he gave. And such sort of like a 3-minute talk. He said he didn't mean to do what he did. Like he wasn't trying to kill this guy. Right? But now it's saying he wouldn't change it. Of course. Because y'all already gave him the Congressional Golden Medal. Of course, now he wouldn't change it. You wouldn't like let loose of the chokehold a little bit, just a little bit.
And I believe when America sees this man,
No.
their confidence in
What?
real men
Nope.
who believe in this country,
Yeah.
who gave up 4 years of his life because of his belief in this country, who's
Okay.
going to stand up and take the slings and the arrows. And he was ready. He was ready to go to prison.
Then he should have gone. Why did he need to get a lawyer then? Man. Judge Janine. I respect Judge Janine. I like Judge Janine. But shout out to Fancy right here. Fancy Hokage says also it wasn't manslaughter. It was negligence. Straight up negligence. He should have just said, you know what? But because now his lawyers would have been like, yeah, you better not say anything like that. You better just say you're the hero today. The people that are calling you hero, embrace it. So shout out to Fancy. Fancy says, it was negligence on the corpse part. The guy survived as the cops said, but died after. Can't blame Daniel. The guy was on drugs. The drug played a huge part. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, Fancy. The drug played a huge part. Correct. I can never argue with that. However, it's like, you know what I mean? Like, when the two guys came to restrain his arm, would you have, like, you know, sort of kind of like released a little bit? But now he can't even admit to that because some people are saying, you know, it's like 60-40, 50-50. People are saying he's a bad boy. Other people are saying he's a good guy. He's a hero. So he has to succumb to one, which is the hero part.
He said, I couldn't let them kill. And he was 100% sure, let him kill. He was 100% sure Jordan Neely was going to kill someone. And he's been riding that subway since he was a kid. And he is someone who recognized, ironically, prescient, that Jordan Neely was on K2. He said to the police within minutes of this, he said he was on K2 or something. And I said, what did that mean? He said, they get incredible strength. He said, he bucked up and picked me up. He said, I swim every day. I'm a Marine. I'm strong. This guy was very strong. You got to watch this interview. He is a phenomenal human being. And you know what? I congratulate his mother and his father. God bless you for what you raised.
Well said. I got chills watching that interview.
Me too. I mean, I've been obsessed with this case from
Yeah,
the
I know.
beginning. And I pray that he gets to go on and have the life that he wants with no attention, if that's possible. I think you told me that he wants to be an architect.
Yeah.
I hope that he builds whatever he wants to build. And it's interesting that you use the word stoic. I listened to something yesterday, and it was an interview about a man who has just written about the Stoics. And he wrote a book called The Right Thing Right Now. So what I heard, what Daniel Penny is saying is that the principle was to do the right thing in the moment, regardless. And it is so important that we have people like this that are willing to do that. And I think about the people like Hawk Newsom, who was just suggesting there should be racist riots in the streets. And I do think that the most insulting thing you can be called is a racist. Mm-hmm. And again, he sat there and said, I'll take the court appearance over having to look myself in the mirror and know I could have done something.
I don't know why, first of all, they're making this into a racial issue. This isn't a racial issue. This is just based off of what happened. It is somebody who felt threatened, according to Daniel Penny. He said he felt threatened, and he felt like people on the train where they felt threatened too, and he decided to help, which is, I mean, it's just common sense to help the people, your society that you live around. The only issue is the person that you're talking about right now is dead. It's not like he's in the hospital or he's in jail or he's in the psychiatrist hospital or something. He's like gone. You know what I mean? So it's like, I get it, okay, but I could not just bring myself to support another man's death, okay? Being that I've been on the subway like 1,000 times, and people have been on the subway doing all sort of BS, dancing, getting in your face, saying, yo, what you doing today, bro? Like, you know, it is the subway. It ain't your daddy's house. It is the subway. Okay, it's a public transportation. And yeah, moral of the story is don't do drugs, and moral of the story, families should take responsibilities for their kids. You know what I mean? Like, you have to, because this guy was homeless. So that alone is like a big flop from his father. So yeah, I mean, it is what it is. But as much as I would blame, the first person that I would blame is his father, like his family, and the negligence of course, I'll blame Jordan Neely too for saying the things he was saying on the subway, because you shouldn't threaten anybody on the subway. But also, Daniel Penny should know how to de-escalate without too much force. You know, I just felt like it was too much force because there were two other people. But yeah, y'all have your opinions too.
And didn't do it. I'm sure you can relate, Joey, to all of that. I do hope that he's able to go on to have a great life with full support and whatever he wants, family, children, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But to be able to move on from this. But I'm concerned about the civil suit. And I don't know how that plays into this.
Well, the father of Jordan Neely, of course, was on a list of the worst 50 mentally ill homeless people in a city of 8 million, has already sued Danny. Of course, the burden of proof is less. It's based upon a preponderance of the evidence. But he's got to go through another trial. Wow. Yeah, this is not over.
A real man of principle.
Yeah, you know, I've sat here and thought about this, especially watching him, and I've thought about this since it's happened. Would I be willing to do the same thing? Would I act the same way? Would I have that type of courage in that moment? You know, he was a Marine, so I feel like I know him. I feel like I went to war with guys just like him. And we have 3 tenets in the Marine Corps called honor, courage, and commitment. Courage, people think, is having the bravado. People confuse courage and bravery. A really stupid person can be brave for a moment, but a thoughtful person can be courageous. Because when you're courageous, you're putting yourself at risk. You're forgoing all of your tomorrows today so somebody else may have one. You're accepting the risk coming to you in order to do something that needs to be done, that is for the better good. I believe he acted with honor, courage, and commitment. I believe that he's stoic now. One of the criticisms is that he isn't showing remorse. When I watch that, I think he still believes that Jordan Neely was there to do harm and would have had he not. And that's part of the problem here is they've painted Jordan Neely as a victim beyond the person that was killed in this incident. They've painted him as a victim of the system and a victim of his affliction and a victim of all these things. Well, you know what? Evil and bad people, there's an origin story behind everybody. I hate that Jordan Neely's life turned out the way it did and ended the way it did. But in that moment, on that subway, he was evil, and Danny Penny was there to stop it. And one more point I want to make that I think is really important. The Marine Corps should be saying, this is our guy. This is who we train. This is why we train you that way. I didn't leave the Marine Corps with the United States government telling me you've lost your responsibility. They said you don't get to call yourself a former Marine. You have to call yourself a Marine for the rest of your life because honor, courage, and commitment, doing the right thing even when no one's looking, putting yourself in danger to save others, that is a responsibility you have for the rest of your life because now you know it. Now you've seen behind the curtain. Civilians, they're nasty. We don't have to believe that they can do it, but you are different. And I hope that when Pete Hegseth is the Secretary of Defense, he creates a Marine Corps culture that would stand up and say, that's our guy, that's what we told him to do, and we appreciate him for it.
We had not heard him talk at all. And we just watch him with his mouth closed and his eyes straight forward throughout this whole thing. How did it change your opinion when you heard him talk to the judge?
It didn't change my opinion. It buttressed what I thought of him already. I've had a high opinion of this young man since this happened. I think that people who are criticizing him and criticizing the verdict haven't paid much attention to the details of it, and they're going with an overarching narrative. Just because the system has failed in other instances doesn't mean that the system failed this time. And the fact that there are words like lynching being thrown around. I saw Jamal Bowman, who thankfully lost his primary over the summer to George Latimer, posted a, dear white people post on X.
Oh.
It is not the time for that. And you want the system to work this way. I'm sorry for the trauma that he endured, but he sat before a jury of his peers, a diverse jury. They heard him out. They were deadlocked on the manslaughter charge. And they were able to come to this agreement. And people were saying across the political spectrum when this case was being brought that Alvin Bragg had a duty to bring it because someone had tragically passed away. But
that's wrong. But go ahead.
Okay. But it just meant from the coverage that I consumed. And I would love to hear why that was wrong from you.
Yeah.
But I can't stand that he's in a conversation in anyone's mind with like a Derek Chauvin or someone who takes life ruthlessly like that. And there was an exchange during the trial where the question was, why do you think that people were in danger? Because he explicitly said it. Jordan Neely said, I'm here to kill people and I'll go to prison.
For the rest of my life,
Right.
I'll go to prison.
And as a subway rider myself, twice a day, who has a lot of complaints about the experience on an almost daily basis, I know that there are a lot of people like me who have the same politics as me who are very happy to know that there are people like Daniel Penny who are riding those trains with us, because it is very scary. And we all just reflexively, especially if you are weaker than someone who is having an episode, move to another car or move down the car out of the way. I took my kids in the subway for the first time since Cleo was born. She's 3 years old tomorrow.
Wow.
It is, yeah, well, I had to. No one helped me with the stroller, people. But
Daniel Penny would have helped with the stroller, too.
Annie would have carried Teddy as well. But
there's one more thing I want to say, and you can watch this in the interview, and you really need to watch the full interview. I asked if he would do it again, having gone through what he went through. You got to watch it.
Yeah, wow.
Hey, Sean.
And he said yes, he would do it again.
Jersey Republican Congressman Chris Smith. His constituents have been reporting drone activity over recent days. It's been happening over several weeks. Congressman, good to have you with us. The White House not ruling out anything, not giving us any answers. Neither did this hearing that we just heard some questions in. What is going on here, and when can people expect to get some answers from our leaders?
They should have had them immediately. Last night I was on the beach with Sheriff Mastronardi, and he's doing a magnificent job in trying to ascertain a threat for this. He's the Ocean County Sheriff. Sean Golden's doing the same thing in Monmouth County. So I was there on the beach, and I talked to several people, including a commander for the Coast Guard, who told me that the night before, I was there last night, so 2 nights ago, one of their 47-foot vessels, boats, was trailed very closely by more than a dozen of these drones. Now that, to me, is very, very not just suspicious, provocative, and this could be a foreign power, whether it be Putin, or whether it be Xi Jinping in China, or the Middle East. We can't rule any of that out.
Yeah, this is incredible.
It's
so
incredible.
A United States Coast Guard boat testified to you that 12 drones were following it in the water in the Atlantic Ocean. Did they tell you anything about the size, what they look like? Were they able to get images? How close were they?
They were pretty large, and they weren't far off the stern. So it's very, very troubling. I called the Joint Base and talked to the commanding officer there and asked, we know we have the capability within DOD to ascertain where it's coming from, even bring it down, and they have it, but they don't have the, quote, authority to do it.
What, from
so I said,
who? See, this is the question,
asked.
Congressman. So when you're out over the ocean, and you have 12 of them out there, I think, it's a very reasonable question. Why weren't one of those drones trailing the Coast Guard ship shot down over the ocean and grabbed and checked out?
Well, again, the capability to do that in a way that could retrieve what it is and who's doing it, it resides within the DOD. They have it. I've asked the commanding officer to get that authority. I've written Lloyd Austin to ask him to give that authority. I mean, this could be the beginning of something, or it could be nothing. Who knows? But how dare they allow us to live? I just listened to the White House spokeswoman.
Say nothing.
They got nothing to tell us.
Unbelievable.
And we have the capability. And the night before, I was there last night till late. The night before, one of our police officers, again working for Sheriff Mastronardi, chronicled 50 coming from the ocean onto land. 50.
This is
this is really serious stuff.
It's insane. It's like a sci-fi movie, and it could be a hoax, but it's so large, the number of them.
There's probably a ship that
it's a foreign entity.
launching them.
It's something that the U.S. knows and understands, or it's some kind of massive hoax with lots of people involved. But whatever it is, we absolutely have to know. So, this lack of answers is absolutely
Martha, there's
really
no way it's
upsetting.
a hoax. We have foreign powers, especially
I hear you.
China, Putin, Russia,
Absolutely.
and
We
the Middle
already,
East.
we watched the balloon go across and didn't shoot it down
Exactly.
until it was well out over the ocean. So let's hope we can get it right this time. It's already very late in that process. Unbelievable. I had one, go over my house, and it's a strange feeling. So
Well, we'll let you know what we hear from DOD, because they
Please do.
should give that authority today.
Well, we
No delay.
appreciate how proactive you are, Congressman Smith, and we're very glad to have you with us today. Thank you very much.
Hey, Sean Hannity here.
And that's just wild, because if you think about it, this drones flying over people's houses, does my mic sound different, or is just me? I don't know. It sounds sort of different. It sounds different. Okay. So, the drones flying over people's houses and all that stuff, it's just wild, because it's like, before we're thinking it's like aliens and stuff. Now it's another country or some other situation, but it's just wow. Skylar, all right, y'all, I'm out. Shout out to Skylar. Thank you for tuning in. Bill Jackson says Danielle Penny is a hero. Yes, sir. Yeah, it's like a feedback, right? I don't know. Yeah, that's wild. Okay, might be my internet. I'm not sure, but yeah, I'm gonna try to fix it for my next stream. But with that being said, you guys are the best. Shout out to Fancy Hulkage. Wait, everybody, put your city in the chat. What city are you watching from, Fancy? Yes, people use those to spy on others for sure. 1000%. Skylar says, all right, y'all, remember to ask yourself why you believe what you believe. Thanks for the stream, brother. Shout out to Skylar, man. Shout out to Skylar, dog. What else? Seattle. Shout out to Fancy, Seattle, Washington. Yeah, man. So when we do come back here, yes, this mic is like messed up. I can hear my feedback. I don't know why. But I can hear my feedback. All right. I'm going to try to fix it later on. 550 Beans. 550 Beans says Harlem, New York. Shout out to New York. It's 550. Well, okay. I'm just going to ask you, okay. 550, what do you think about the Danielle Penny and Jordan Neely situation? Because you're watching from New York right now, so you definitely feel the heat more than we are, because I'm in Georgia right now. So BU says Fresno, California. Shout out to California. All right. I am about to end the live stream. But with that being said, instead of looking for perfection, seek for consistency. Never give up on yourself. Never give up on your dreams. Never give up on God. Believe in yourself, believe in your dreams, and believe in God. Okay? We will be back for sure. Well, yeah, we will be back. Fancy say, as always, I hope all is well, and I hope y'all and your family are in amazing health. I wish you success and nothing less than happiness. Love y'all. Shout out to Fancy, always with the good vibes. Shout out to Fancy, man. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen. It is your boy Genesis. You know what time it is. I am tuning. Everyone, have a great day. Thanks for tuning in to the channel. Shout out to Mr. Booski. Mr. Booski, I hope you've been doing great. Thank you for tuning in to the live show. I will be back later tonight, and yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Booski. That's the moderator for today, and yes, sir. See y'all soon, and I am signing out.